Here.
Mr. Jesse.
Here.
And I will ask for Ms. Williams to please lead us in prayer.
Let us pray. Oh, gracious God, our Father, once again, this beautiful day you made for us all. Father, we are here once again in this Cool Lives room in Saluda. Father, trying to do to make you proud of us. Father, treat each other like we. In Jesus' name we all do pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. And Anne Marie, would you lead us Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda, and that includes our meeting agenda. And I do have one change to the meeting agenda. It's just a move. Item 8A1, which is the Urbana Town boundary line adjustment. I've been requested to move that up as the first item under agency and staff reports. That's the only change to the consent agenda. And given that, I'll ask for approval.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Mr. Harris, second by Mr. Kuntz. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Kuntz,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Jesse,
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough.
Aye. Motion carries. Now open the meeting for public comment. Anne Marie, do we have any submissions?
I do not have any submissions for public comment.
Would anyone from the public like to address the board? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment period. Next, we have constant reports. Treasurer's report is on pages 36 through 41 of your packet. Is there anything? Oh, the treasurer's not with us. Any questions or discussion on pages 36 through 41?
Only question I have to a county administrator, how's the process going on the rebate on the personal property? I was going to ask that question to Tracy, but
I've got the perfect word for it, sir. Arduous, but it's going.
Okay.
I think May could probably speak to it sometime.
I was going to ask her a question regarding
They
that as
are,
well.
they're asking for people's patience. They got a lot of work that they've got to slog through and make sure that they get the accounting right, but it's moving.
Great, thanks.
Yep.
Next is Commissioner of Revenue. It is report only, but she is here.
In addition, she does have an agenda item that I think she's going to discuss. Agenda item on page 144
All right, thank
for the
you.
budget
Okay.
adjustment.
Thanks for being here.
Hello, good afternoon. So yes, I would like to take from Anne Marie the budget supplement request that was supposed to be later this afternoon, but it's about the Forest Sustainability Fund Award. So back in November, I applied on behalf of the county to recoup some of the money that is deferred for the forestry portion of land use, because the General Assembly during 22 introduced legislation that allows localities to restore some of the foregone revenue that is lost with the program. There were 68 localities that submitted applications, and there was a total amount of $72.5 million amongst all 68 of foregone revenue for forestry land use. And our locality received a portion back of the budgeted $1 million in the amount of $1,825.89. Small amount, but it is looking like they may continue this fund. So it would allow localities each year And it'll be hopefully budgeted for more funds to be returned back to the different localities based on foregone revenue that each individual lose based on the going to give back. That money has already been received by the treasurer's office. But I wanted to present it to the board to let you know that I went out to seek it and got it for us. So
Thank you for
there's
doing that.
that. And then there were a couple of other things, if I can take the time. I've been looking over our elderly and disabled tax relief program. And I just wanted to give you all an, as far as the income range increase for this year. The CPI increased about 6.5%. So the minimum income range, well, the minimum income amount for 22 was 17,970. That minimum has increased to 19,139. And the maximum amount of income for 22 was 34,556. And with the increase in CPI, it has increased to 36,800. For 22, there were 93 participants, 102 participants back in 21. And then just to give you all an idea of what the impact would be if the income rate, the maximum amount of relief was changed, because currently the ordinance calls for $500 relief, but I decided to work up what it would be if you all decided to increase that maximum amount of relief. If it were to increase to $750, the discounted amount or the relief would increase by an estimated amount of $28,000. And if you all were to increase that maximum of relief to $1,000, the discounted amount would increase by about $57,000. And I just wanted to also mention that we noticed last year, coming out of the general reassessment, that there were some participants that normally would not receive a real estate bill because their taxes were that low. However, with the increase across the board for all real estate in the county, there were some that normally didn't receive a bill that did receive bills. So just wanted to provide you all with that information. And the next thing that I have,
Sorry, that,
Yeah.
that was a lot of information.
Sorry.
It sounds very,
I
very-
have it to
I-
send to you all and by
Can't send
email
that.
so you can
okay, that'd be great.
look at it at your leisure.
Burned up my pen.
Sorry. No, don't worry. I'll send it all to you all by email. And, oh, the last thing I have. So I have been talking with other localities. Personal property values are a big issue, very big last year. I have noticed going through JD Power, because I just received the 2023 books, that they are returning to a normal market, if you want to call it normal. They are lowering quite a bit lower than 22 values. And so I did somewhat of a survey of about 20 vehicles. And I looked at their values from 21, 22, and 23. And I just randomly opened the book, and the first vehicle year and make that was in my eyesight is what I went with. And I did that 20 times. And it's looking like we may have a decrease, just those 20 vehicles, because I saw a decrease of about 20% from 23 and 22. 23 is still a little bit higher than 21's value, but again, 22 is not your normal decrease that you would normally see with personal property. So we can anticipate a decrease. It's going to take me a little bit longer before I can give you a little bit better numbers. And I'll do some more digging with vehicles, but I'll also provide you with a copy of this so you can see it for yourselves.
So your random survey indicated that the vehicle
Mhm.
valuations have declined about 20% from what they were.
Those 20 vehicles, themselves, just about. I talked with a couple of other localities, Fauquier, even though they're not comparable to us, even Lynchburg and Fairfax, and they have seen about a 25% increase in their valuations. So it's going down. JD Power can't really give us a reason as to why. Their response to us is 22 is unusual. So it's. Mhm.
Great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Appreciate that very much.
Thank you for coming. It's always a pleasure to see you because you're always to the point and you have all your figures together, and that's nice to see. Thank you.
Mhm.
How is it going with, I'm not quite sure the mechanics of what you supply Tracy, or does she just get into your computer, or how does that?
Okay, so
Your support for her.
we share information. So I do the billing, and so I send the file over to her so she can see exactly what I'm going to look at on a day-to-day basis. But it's going to be a little bit different because she's looking at it from a payment side and I'm looking at it from an assessment side. So basically what I am doing and what my office is doing is providing support as to what the ordinance says is eligible and making sure that they know exactly when they see it, because their records aren't going to show year, make, model, body style that I can see. So it may just have a name, and if it says Escort, we have found that Escort is a trailer and Escort is a vehicle and all kinds of other things. So I just make sure that they know exactly based on the ordinance what is and isn't eligible. And so
You don't provide any type of list of specifically Dawn Harris drives a 79.
no, I not necessary to do that because she
Okay.
has that already. What I send over for billing lists all of that, but it's going to show a little bit different because their system won't necessarily have all of the lines that I have, so it'll cut certain things. But she still is able to see Dawn Harris has XYZ,
Right.
and yes.
So, and I know it's just your educated guess at this point.
Mhm.
Do you have a timetable of when you think y'all could be completed with the process? And I know that's broad-ended, and I know Tracy's not here to say,
I would definitely have to defer to the treasurer's office and Tracy with that, because it is a rather time-consuming and extensive project as far as whether it's going to be applied directly, or how many checks may have to be cut. So I'm leery of saying exactly a specific time frame.
thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Do we need to do something for you? Do we need to, is this part of your resolution, the 182589 Forestry?
Oh, yes, yes.
Yes. Is that correct?
Is that correct, Anne Marie?
And it's only one, correct?
Yes, it's only one for me.
Because
That's
trying to figure-
resolution 2023-26.
okay, I'd make a motion to for FY 2023-26 budget supplement request form to make that change.
I'll second it.
Mr. Harris?
Motion.
Oh, can I say that yet? You didn't say that.
Motion by Mr. Harris, second by Mr. Jesse. Is there any discussion? A roll call. Thank you.
Now I can start. Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Jesse,
Yes.
Mr. Coons,
Yes.
Mr. Kimbrough.
Yes. Thank you. Good catch there, Don. Okay, thank you so much, May.
You're welcome.
Good stuff.
You all have a nice afternoon.
All right, next, we go to agency and staff reports, and where we have moved the Urbana Town Council the town of Urbana boundary line adjustment, and Ms. Erard.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I am pleased to be here this afternoon, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you about a proposed relocation of a part of the boundary line between the town of Urbana and Middlesex County. You did. The Virginia General Assembly has expressly authorized that localities can make adjustments to their boundary lines by mutual agreement. And here is just an overview of the current boundary line of Urbana. And here is a little bit more of a close-up view of the area where the town is requesting that the boundary line be adjusted. This is the map that, whoops, let me go back. This is the map that the town has had prepared, which shows the parcels that would be relocated from the county of Middlesex to the town of Urbana. Here we have 4 parcels that are highlighted in yellow. And at this time, those are all owned by the town of Urbana, and one of them is the town's well lot. Another one of the parcels that is part of the proposal is owned by HRSD, and I have it highlighted here in pink. 2 of the parcels are owned by the Middlesex Volunteer Fire Department, and they support the relocation of the boundary between the county and the town. And then of the remaining parcels, 4 of them are owned by Thurston Properties, and 1 is owned by the Hall Family Limited Partnership. Both of those entities do support a relocation of the boundary line. In your packet is a draft agreement that would adjust the boundary line between the town of Urbana and the county of Middlesex. This agreement would need to be advertised for public hearing by both the county of Middlesex and the town of Urbana. And then following that, the county and the town could vote to approve the agreement. I did inquire whether the town would be willing to pay for the costs of advertising for both the county and the town, and we would. So there would be no cost to the county for any of this. Once there's the public hearing and the agreements are approved, then the appropriate paperwork would be filed with the court, and upon entry of an order, the boundary line would be relocated. I will say that I have had preliminary discussions with your county attorney, and we will also review whether or not it may be necessary to get some type of approval through the Attorney General's office. So if the board would be inclined to move forward with this, we will make sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. And that's just because of the election and voter information that was passed in the most recent General Assembly, to make sure that there's no disparate impact and that nothing that would disadvantage any particular group would occur. And so with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. We are here today asking for the board to indicate whether or not it supports moving forward with this process.
I'll open the.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Now, I have like to ask a question about the Baylor property
Mr. Bailey had the property there that water tower had popped off and, put water all around his property. And my question is, if you move the tower, I mean, when you build a new well,
Mhm.
would there be some type of berm or something there? So if that water tower pops off again, it won't flood around his house?
We happen to have our former council member, but resident water expert, Mr. Bill Smith, here with us. And if I could ask him to step up and offer assistance. Thank you. Yes, we will, but he can give you more of the particulars. And I have heard of that in other localities as well. It's a very important safety consideration. Are you declining?
We have an emergency shut off up at the tower now, okay? Well, which I call the 8-year well, which is the one that be going in after this one that we're presently going.
Here's the map right here.
That will just be a line that'll be under the ground going back to the tower, the existing tower. The tower does have that shut off there that was done probably around 5-6 years ago, because we did have that issue where it overflowed once and there was no shut off, but now there's an emergency shut off, automatic. And that's when the alarm will go off and Mr. Kime will call me. So other than that, there should not be any issue with any overflow at all.
Well, when you dig your new well, the old well and shut off will be obsolete, correct?
The number 3, which is down at Tabor Park now, will be abandoned at the time the new well goes online.
I'm talking about in regards to this property, the top of the hill.
Okay, that well will be our backup well. It
Okay.
will be inactive. We'll be using the new well 8 years from now when DEQ is mandated that we have a secondary well up there on that other piece of property. Then well number 5, which is the one up there now, will be shut down and abandoned.
And those safeguards will be on the new well that you drill?
The safeguards are on the tower.
Okay,
Okay, there should not be anything from the pump coming up out of the ground. It'll be in a line going straight to the pump house. When it goes from the pump house, it goes up to and pushes it into the tower.
I got it. I got it now. Thank
Okay.
you.
So basically you're telling me that, you're just digging a well right there and the pipe will pump up to the big tower. Is
Right,
that what you're saying?
yeah.
In
Now,
other words, there won't be a tower in that spot. It'll be a well in that spot that will pump the water up to that tower.
up to the tower, the
Right.
existing tower. Now, the one thing that when the well's being constructed, the driller is responsible for when they're testing the water and pumping it out and stuff like that. We had a site visit the other day. Everybody knows that has to be pumped out. We have a runoff now down to some riprap at the bottom of the hill. It goes into the parking lot of the town hall and into the storm drain there. And they're responsible to make sure that there is no water anywhere, that gets away.
But I just want to be sure that, that in writing that, that pop off or whatever. I know you got alarms, everything, but things go down, somebody can't get the alarm, the water goes off there. If the water won't go onto his property again and wash all
Yeah,
around.
it should not at all.
Once-
And the only
Go ahead.
anytime there's any type of overflow, it'll be overflowing at the tank, the water.
Right, I
tower
realize
itself.
that the tank,
And
but
if
that
you-
happened, I know we talking about the well, but I'm just talking about the overflow from the tower
To
to.
the tower,
Mm.
and there's automatic emergency shut off, so it'll shut it off immediately. Okay, and
With
then
a
we'll
backup.
go, and then I'd go up to there and shut the well off, so it won't be anything pumped any further.
Well, I was like, well, as long as we got some type of backup, because it can happen again. That's what I'm saying.
There's a
happened.
backup generator, right?
Yeah, we have a backup generator, but that doesn't really matter. It's just that when the water's being pumped out of the well into the tank, if it overflows, it'll go to that emergency shut off. We'll get alarms, we'll go up, shut the well down. Let the tank go back down to where it needs. Right now, we probably have 25% of the tank left in just air. Because it's a gravity.
I know, grab the trade tank. Well, see, right there. That's what.
Thanks, Andrea.
Thank you.
Further questions?
Can you clarify where the well,
Yes,
that's what I was trying to understand. I see Mr. Baylor's.
It's right here.
Oh, it's right there.
You can see Bill's property right there.
Okay. And so you're saying you think you want to berm around where the well.
Well, so the flooding won't happen again. If, you know, even though alarm will go off, if somebody don't get to the alarm,
Right.
it's still gonna flow over, you know, you don't know
just-
where it's gonna be. He may be in Timbuktu. I don't know, but I'm just saying, you know, if you're at home, yeah.
But there's, an- but there's an automatic shut off that would occur before he would come there. Yes.
I mean,
And that automatic shut off is backed up with a generator.
right.
Yeah.
But I mean, things happen. I mean, it happens.
Yes.
We also have a SCADA system up there that monitors them.
Okay.
I can call it up on my cell phone and I know exactly what the water level in the tank is.
We'd be happy to show this to you if you ever wanted to come and look at it.
Again, thank you.
Yes, questions.
All right,
Anytime.
I'm good right now, but we'll talk later.
Thank
Thank you.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Mine's a little bit different from my counterparts here. Why do Urbana want to do this?
A large part of it is that there are 4 parcels that belong to town that we would like to have in the town. That's the primary motivating reason. And then when the town started talking about it, there were some other property owners, the Thurstons and the Hall family partnership, that indicated that they too would be interested in becoming part of the town. It's in no way any type of a surreptitious move to gain population or change anything substantial between the town and the county. Really just to get our property in the town.
So you're saying that Thurston's agreed to be double taxed to
Yes,
get
sir.
their property in the county? That's one way.
Yes, sir. And the Hall Family Trust.
And is this Urbana best option?
I'm sorry.
Is this the best option to drill a well?
Well, yes, based on all of the analyses and engineering work that we've done, yes.
So what you're telling me is it'd be better for Urbana to drill a well than it would be to add on to Mills County water system.
No, I'm simply saying that in terms of all of the work that we have done, engineering work to date, that has been identified as a good location for a well. I cannot speak to joining the Middlesex County water system. I have not researched that.
And right now, like Brother Justin was saying, that by putting a berm and stuff up here to protect the property of a landowner, and the promise is to do something about that.
Yes, sir.
You know, I look at the tax base or whatever they're saying. I always gonna look at the tax base,
Mm-hmm,
and I'm looking at this a little bit different.
mm-hmm.
I probably would think it'd be better for you to draw the water authority and put your whole works in. I know I'm getting a little bit off the course right now.
Mm-hmm.
But if I look at dollars and cents for the county, I would think that that's somewhere near the right thing to do. You know, so it get interesting because I always ask the question, you know, always watch the answer of the first one that somebody tell you. Now, Thurston Property said that at one meeting that we don't mind it being double taxed. You know, nobody's in this courtroom gonna want to pay double what they're paying. So and that throw a flag for me. Now, I'm not saying they don't want to be part of the town. The second thing was said that we want to put town hall into Urbana. And the question I put it in Saluda, you have more residents in Middlesex County.
Mm-hmm.
See, I feel that, and I'm not saying that Urbana shouldn't get a well or whatever, but I look for the truth behind it
Yes, sir.
instead of the smothering of it.
Mhm.
And we know water is very important to Urbana. We know it's important to Urbana because we can't take the bill away and give it to the county. And if we drive behind it mostly, that is a lot of the reasoning behind it. And the decision we got to make, to me, just maybe made on a personal basis, to be honest with you. So we gonna, I guess, you know, like a guy told me, it's a 3-2 vote. You know, so I guess we'll have to go there, but that's how I look. I do like honesty at the very first question I asked. Nothing against anybody, but that's how I look at it. I didn't agree, and I think when you made a presentation 2 or 3 months ago, one time you said that we want to put a town hall in it. You were selling that. Then you said about DMV and all these kind of things. And I didn't forget these things. Now we're coming to the meat, and I'm glad Mr. Wheeler, when I talked to him, I really appreciate the conversation that he had with me. I felt right now that was the most honest conversation I had altogether. I didn't say that'll change my mind about anything,
Yes, sir.
but it did make me feel good about him and also good about myself. But once again, I appreciate things you have said, and you know, I'm just I'm a tax guy. I look at the tax base. So when I got to make a decision, you can look at something. You see that dude there, if he took a penny away from somebody else and give it to you, I ain't gonna do it. You know,
I understand,
you.
and I too
Thank you. I do
appreciate your
appreciate it.
candor. Thank you.
Don? Comments? No. I don't have any questions there. If there's nothing else, what you've asked for is whether the board supports moving forward.
Yes, sir.
We do have a boundary line adjustment agreement in the packet, which would need to be executed. So,
Sir, you're not in a position to execute that tonight. We would have to advertise a public hearing first.
I was just about to ask the county attorney where we are in this. So the question, I think, that's being asked is there a consensus to move forward with the next step towards execution of this agreement? Is that right?
Yes, sir. And then, so in the sample agreement that we have in our packet, as Mrs. O'Rourke's already stated, that initially the language said each locality would pay for their own advertising costs, but the town's now willing to pay for that.
Mhm.
You know, so it would start the wheel and essentially is consensus on the proposed map, and then we would need to fine tune the agreement and schedule public hearings.
So if I can recap what we're being asked to support, it is as far as the emergency provisions that Mr. Jesse brought up, it's not a berm, it is a shut-off system
Yes, sir.
that should prevent flooding.
Mhm.
And I just want to make sure everybody understands that.
And I do reiterate, if anyone has any questions or wants to see the system in operation to have greater assurance, we will make that happen. Because those are very serious concerns, and I want you to feel comfortable with it.
So in evaluating consensus, I'll just ask Mr. Jesse, do you support moving ahead?
I'll put taking it to public hearing to see, but my question is, I still have I think the town can put some type of little berm or overflow, even though you have all these stops that you can have. And I understand the system,
Mhm.
but I think, you know, in order for the county to say, hey, yeah, we want to adjust these lines, I think you can do that for us to make sure that you know, a berm is put there.
Okay.
And I don't know what it's gonna cost, but find out what's gonna cost. And then, you know, this water won't go on to this person's property, Mr. Baylor's property. That was most of the concern, because I would put myself in his situation, that I have a home. And, you know, at some time, even though you have a lot of different securities and different
Mhm.
things, man-made things and always don't work.
Right.
So if you got something that back up, another backup, I bet you that wall gonna back it up, because you ain't gotta worry about nobody bells, whistles, or anything to do, because when they hit the wall, it can deter it and go another way.
Yes.
That's my main concern on that situation. I have no problem with the line adjustment. I understand all the circumstances on it. I'm just looking at homeowners and, you know, it
Mhm.
happened one time, it can happen again.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we'll be happy to take a look at that then and either indicate that what will occur or what the obstacles are. We'll provide you with an answer and we'll look at it.
Just for clarification, are you asking Mr. Jesse to incorporate that into the boundary line agreement? It seems like that sounds like I think where you're. trying to
I
go.
would like for that to be, and then, you know, it's done, and, you know, it's still the same, you know, and I know they got backups, but, you know, we know this won't happen again. It happened one time, it can happen again.
Okay.
This can happen 30 years down the road.
Yes, sir.
But if you got a berm there, that berm's not going anywhere, or something to deter that water from going on its property.
Mhm,
That's the main concern, because I know I would be concerned if I lived there. None of us live there. But you
mhm.
gotta understand the concern of a homeowner that you live there and
Yes, sir.
this happening. It happened one time before, and it can happen, you know, 20, 30 years from now. You know, but at least you're protecting that property.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
I'm in agreement with continuing the process. So I'm in support of that. I'll echo what Wayne said. We've kind of sliced and diced this a little bit over time, and y'all have done a great job in making the adjustments on some of the things that the board was concerned about.
Mhm.
So thank you very much for doing that. I would think as being part of the town, wanting to have a good relationship with the landowners that are next to all of this.
Mhm.
And it doesn't seem like you have too much resistance to that. I would still encourage the town to do some of the things that might make the whole process a lot easier for everybody
Yes, sir.
involved.
Thank you.
Last thing I'll say is, whatever transpires as it's moving forward, I know you've had some collaboration with our attorney, but I assume yourself will take over the blunt of what needs to be done as it's going forward.
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm pro Urbana, I'm pro Middlesex, and where the boundary is interesting, and the reasons for changing it seem to make good sense. It seems like you've done your diligence. I'd like to defer to the Urbana and Western District leaders, and I think they're pretty clear on some of their concerns. I've operated a small water system at the Coves or been a part of a team that's done that. And so I can respect Mr. Jesse's concern with bells and whistles versus an actual curb that's going to make water go away.
Mhm.
I would just make sure that contractually, any owners in question are in a position that making sure that Urbana is not going to leave anybody feeling like they got rained on, there was no rain. You know,
Yes, sir.
whatever we can do legally to make sure that that person would be made whole in the future if something like that would happen.
Mhm.
That, in my mind, should already be in place, but I leave it to you, good people of Urbana, to figure out the best solution and be respectful of the Middlesex supervisors and their wishes in that end of the, if this is progress and it's Middlesex and Urbana working together, I'd really like to just highlight that we're all talking in the same room. And
Thank you.
I'm all for that.
I agree, and I very much appreciate the opportunity.
Okay. I know where you are.
All you need is a 3-2, you know, so it's not much I can say, but you know, you echo when you put something around any person anywhere, and we say we're gonna justify with all these different kind of things. Imagine if you was that person sitting in that position. I don't like the idea of you closing anybody in on all four sides. You closing a person in. But just like I said, on the financial part, I know it's why don't you just say it straight out? You want the county to save the town, you know, and that's what it comes down to if you look at it. You know, we can play with it and we can think how we are. You need the water system. Urbana needs the water system financially. They can't, it's not a smart thing for them to give water authority. You know, these things are not smart things to do. It just not, you don't have to, you know, it's not smart to do. And we can make a decision based on our emotions or feel. But I'm not, like I said the first time, and I'm gonna repeat once time, I'm not gonna box anybody in. I see them put interstates in and you box somebody in and you're sitting in the middle of it too. I guess that'd be a miserable place for somebody to be. John did say one thing, make it right. Whatever it is, make it right. How you make it right? That is a good question. But I agree with that part. He said, make it right.
Mm.
And, you know, once again, Mr. Wheeler, I love the conversation we had, but I like to put information together and I come up with this ideas that I have about things. It's been that way for 100 years. I don't see no use in changing something that's been that way for the long. Sometimes you take care of what you got. You don't have to change it a lot, you know. So I know it's a reason behind everything, and it's a reason behind this, you know. And I just, you know, we're gonna vote anyway for it to go forward to see where we land up at anyway. So, and that's it. My comments won't mean a thing, but in the process, I can show you that my comments make sense.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, because the county attorney and I will need to decide whether or not we need to reach out to the Attorney General's office, and also because the next step would be advertising a public hearing, would you think that it might be appropriate to have a motion to authorize those actions, to authorize a public hearing, and that the county attorney and the town attorney move forward with?
I need you to. weigh in
Yeah,
on this.
I was actually thinking, thank you, Andrea. That was gonna be, yes, sir. So if it's the board's desire to move forward with the map as it's drawn and into consideration, the discussion of the berm and whether that's addressed physically in this agreement, or maybe the town does, that's something we need to consider as we move forward with this agreement per the board's direction. We do need a motion. So if you wish to move
So-
forward at this time.
So what I'm hearing, and I'm supportive of, and I don't see a reason to object. I'll just put it that way. So that means I'm supportive of moving ahead to the next step.
Yes.
That's
Agreement to actual relocation.
right.
It's authorization for us to examine procedural steps and authorization to advertise. We would not want to do that without proper approval.
So can you state what this motion might say, please?
Yes, sir. I'll give it a go, and Andrea will weigh in if she's got something to add. So a motion to move forward with the procedural process of the boundary line adjustment between the town and the county, to include addressing the berm concerns around the water tower and to scheduling a public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
No.
Mr. Jesse,
Aye.
Mr. Kuntz,
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Mhm.
You have to come see me about 4-1. That's a whole nother thing.
That's side of my life.
4-1's a rough. 4-1.
All right. Thank you. The next item on the agenda, item 4A, is VDOT, which is a report only on pages 43 through 45 of your packets. And that is followed by school matters, and Dr. Seitz is here. Hi. We're on page 46 of the packet. So switch.
Yeah, that might.
That's why
Get me your more your perspective.
Kevin, your range of skills is extraordinary.
Did you get any of that trading at the Broadband Authority, Kevin?
Something.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. I just have one budget supplement request that's on page 46 in your packets, and that has to do with an appropriation from the USDA. It's the third appropriation, and that is to cover some of the supply chain challenges that our school nutrition department has faced still due to COVID. So that's the only supplement request I have for you today.
Do I hear a motion for FY 2023-27?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Coons, second by Mr. Harris. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Jesse,
Aye.
Mr. Kuntz,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I was going to give you a quick up also on the overflow king project at the elementary school. We've had a couple of little obstacles in the way, but still look on course to finish that by the end of the summer. First was because of some DEQ changes or requirements. Bay Design had to go back and redesign the stormwater management facility as a wet pond. So they worked through that design and then discovered that there was potentially some underground power conflict with SunTribe, because remember that solar field powers both the elementary and middle. And so there is some design work there that has to be worked through. Bay Design is working with SunTribe on that. And we're still looking at hopefully an end of summer project completion. So I just wanted to give you that update.
Thank you.
I'm happy to answer any other questions.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
I think one of your meetings, we're talking about the pumping station out on the highway.
Yes.
And if that if that particular get approved, could it give you a whole lot more parking over that side of the highway? If some way you negotiate the parking over that side, then nobody would have to cross the road to come back over the road.
Parking, you mean behind, where exactly are you talking about? additional
We
parking?
know where they're trying to put the pumping station at.
Yes.
All of that land will be open up. It'll give you enough parking for all the complex you need. If it was thought about, I mean, I'm just throwing that out there.
Mhm. We actually, our PE classes use that, all of that. So what looks like it may be open, that's where we've got our kind of our makeshift softball and baseball field there. So the
No, I'm
school
not
uses
talking
that.
forward.
I don't know that I understand then where you're talking about, behind the pump station.
If you look at the pumping station, that'll be the little building on the side of the road.
Yes.
The parking area that you could put in there will accommodate anything you want for the complex, and it won't interfere with none of your ball fields.
So you're talking about putting an additional parking in there?
You might be
For the
negotiating. We
complex?
spend a lot of money, but this HRSD,
So you want me to
And that
negotiate
would-
with
that-
the?
well, I'm just throwing it out because put it on the other side of the road, we don't know what the future holds. You gotta deal with sun trial and run it, but I'm just putting it out there. I don't know whether it's gonna be approved by the school board or not, the land for them to put that pumping station there. But if they do, that do open us by avenue
Mhm.
that we'll have all the parking we would need right there over the same side of the road that the complex is at. And
Right. So the overflow parking, which is why we're able to use ESSER funds for it, is to accommodate people already
That's right.
parking in that field, which is not a parking lot. And so we really needed it designed as a parking lot so that it's safe for both parking and drop off and pickup. Because right now we back up into Philpott. Sometimes in the morning, most afternoons, we still back up into Philpott because of the number of car riders. So that again is why we had the car riders, the number of students
And that's
being
why we're able-
transported that
and
way.
That's why we're able to use ESSER funds.
Yeah.
Because we can relocate that car ride line as well as, in the event of emergencies, we can use that area.
Mhm. And so it does still benefit the sports complex because they also use it kind of as an overflow area and they are crossing. I think some of the things that could be considered maybe that the sports complex would want to consider is some sort of crosswalk area there, maybe lighted to come across if people are parking over on the school side, then to cross over to utilize the sports complex piece. I see that we've got now the middle school. So what's being highlighted right now, it may not be used on a daily basis, but it is used by the PE department, our technology student association. They'll use that outside area also. So again, not necessarily used on a daily basis there, but it is used by our classes at the middle school.
Isn't there some drainage lines through there as well, I think?
I actually don't know the answer to that. I'd have to
Well,
ask
I can
Mr.
assure you
Harris.
it is.
Yeah. Mhm.
Between
I know there's a ditch there. so-
between the school and the parking area. It,
what.
It what is.
Design is working through.
okay, good. Because that just talking about the complex, that's,
You're talking
Yeah.
about drainage, what he's showing right there.
yeah, to,
Yeah, that I'm not sure of.
well, certain parts of it. So, and we're trying to get our muscles together before we come and talk to the school about the possibility of extending that parking lot at some point. We're thinking about it too, because our parking's in certain events is not adequate for what we want to continue to try to do there.
Mhm.
Just a quick question as we consider the high school renovation and there's discussion about potentially adding on in the middle of the county, either at the elementary or the middle school, is there thought about expansion of parking capacity that's also contemplating future changes to where the distribution of students lies, or is this, and you also said elementary school. I'm a little confused. Where is there additional parking potentially going?
To the left of, if you want to zoom over that way. So where you pull into the elementary school now.
Yes,
With
that's what I
parking is on
thought
the
we were
left,
talking-
it's that field area on the right.
Right here.
Yep, right there.
Okay, and so when they talk about a Sun Tribe issue, you can actually see the dirt that was disturbed when they ran that line in part. I assume they're saying that it's just, 3 feet deep or something, and they need to cut a swale or something for drainage, and that they may have compromised the depth of that main feeder or something like that.
There's a lot of conversation. I will tell you that I have not gotten into the weeds of
Sure.
that. I really have left that to Bay Design and Sun Tribe to work through, although I'm in an email chain
Sure.
of it, of what that looks like. It's something that they feel like they can certainly work with, and it doesn't end the project that we've got there for the overflow
So
parking.
just to clarify, because we sorted over to the middle school and you actually were talking about the elementary. school.
Elementary, yes.
Okay, so can you
Mhm.
bring it back to the elementary school, Matt? And so the issue you're pointing out is a legitimate one. K-5 is housed there, and in the mornings and even to some extent in the evenings, everything binds up right there between teacher and administration and parent and drop-off parking. It's a bit of a traffic pinch point.
Mhm.
And we don't have adequate parking, and people, I can actually say I've gotten stuck in that field when it gets a little wet and everybody overparked there and we went a little too far and you can get stuck in there. It makes sense. The only other thing I would add is there was a song in the 90s, you paved paradise and put up a parking lot. I don't know if that's the title, but they do make products now that consider impervious surfaces and runoff. I would just ask that when Bay Design is looking at this from a stormwater prevention and mediation aspect, as they already are by law, and that's what we hire them to do, maybe let's look at some other products that aren't just concrete and blacktop that are creating impervious surface and runoff, even though we don't have the credit issues that are being applied in bigger, because we don't have the runoff issues that bigger jurisdictions have. That's great. We've got the ability to say it's not our fault, but we still know that adding impervious surface down here creates a problem. So I would just ask that as the board and Bay Design are working through this, and we're thinking about adding more square footage of parking lot that will need to be repaved. Everybody's enjoyed seeing all the repaving going on, but those are big capital improvements. And there are other solutions that people have been using around the world for the last 20 years that address both the impervious nature of parking lots, but also the environmental standpoint. And I think there may be a solution there worth considering. So I just ask you to maybe put that in Bay Design's head as they're stepping through stormwater issues. And let me know if Sun Tribe gives you any trouble.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
The other,
No, I would just like to ask a question about, the metal detectors that they say for the schools. I know I read something in the paper, you say there's funding for, was it Ursa?
Actually, I just emailed the editor and shared that piece is inaccurate.
I was wondering about that because,
Yeah,
it
I'm
say
glad you
that
called.
at
It's
the-
good. Yeah,
the
no,
funding.
it doesn't. Yeah, so metal detectors wouldn't qualify under COVID.
Oh, okay.
And actually what I had said was, when we were talking about funding, is that they don't qualify for ESSER funds, and that I would likely be back here at the Board of Supervisors asking for additional funding for metal detectors if we decide to go forward with that project. I have been reached out to by an organization that potentially could donate some funds that they have raised for some other projects, so they would go towards that. But no, ESSER funds would not cover metal detector.
I know,
purchases.
I had read that in the
Yeah.
paper. But my question is too, you have one that's in the gym. I go to all the basketball games. It's there, but you're not using it. Never been utilized since I've been seeing it there.
That's right.
And I guess it's certain procedures that you have to go through or something.
So, yeah, and so I can give you all an update on that real quick too, because I was updating the board. The sheriff was able to purchase some from an opportunity that he had last summer, reached out and purchased them. And so there's one at the middle school, there's one at the high school, have not been used yet. They've been tested to make sure that they do work okay. And I met with the senior SRO right when we came back from our holiday break to discuss their use. And we have to start with a policy first, which we're working on that with our board and with our board attorney on a policy for metal detectors if we're going forward with this. And what would be the best route to put something like that in place. I did mention it or not, I kind of presented on it at our last school board meeting. And still collecting data on that. We've got right now 10 points of entry at all of our schools. You would have seen that in the newspaper. And we have two functional good metal detectors that have been donated to us from the sheriff's department. And they were given to us with the intent of maybe using them randomly, or if we had a game that was a little bit heightened, maybe using them in that sense. Our staff, our school staff has not been trained on the use of them. And so that we've not put them in place for that use because of that requirement there. We've looked into the purchase of potentially 8 additional metal detectors. We think maybe we could reduce that because, and the reason I say 8 is that when I have talked with other colleagues in other divisions that have put metal detector use in place at all of their schools, when you're looking at the elementary school, for example, when you've got 600 children coming in about a 30-minute time frame in the morning, it really does need 2 detectors at each location that you're bringing students in, and then staff to be able to wand anything that sets off the detector and those things. So that's kind of where we are. We haven't given any training yet to any of our staff, which is why nothing like that has been in use. We certainly haven't had, a heads up on anything that we needed to immediately put any of them into action. But the ones that we have 2 that are operational and are from a company that we would seek to purchase additional ones for what we have. We just haven't, we're in that process now. Was the board's direction at the last meeting to start with determining what a policy would look like for that and then putting those things into place. It would take the easiest place to put a metal detectors into place would be the high school because they have 1 entry point. Middle school has 6 entry points in the morning. So it would be changing that whole direction of traffic and drop off and such like that to put it into place. And then again, training staff to monitor them.
Yeah, I would just, because, I go to other basketball games. I've been following the team.
Mhm.
And if you go in the gyms, you have your resource officer there. And I noticed Essex and also Charles City.
Mhm.
You walk through it. I mean, it's quick, you just put your keys and phone on one side, walk through, and then you go for your ticket. And, I was just wondering why, but I see you have to have a policy first and
Right.
go through all the steps. But, like I said, I just want to question on
Sure.
why it hadn't happened. Okay.
Yep. Works.
Anything else about schools? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Next, we have social services report only on pages 47 through 48 in your packet.
Mr. Chairman, did you vote to approve the budget supplemental request? I'm sorry, if you did, I missed it. I apologize.
I thought that I thought Mr. Harris.
Oh, you did? Okay,
It
I'm
was
sorry.
Lightning fast. So next on the agenda, with social services being report only, is the employee health insurance presentation by Mr. Rowe. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Matt and Marie. Kevin, do you have my presentation? And Marie? Okay.
Mr. Rowe, I understand you're here to tell us that the cost of healthcare is coming down.
I'm going to take you with me to every community. Mr. Coons. There we go. Slideshow. Go up to slideshow at the, There you go, from the beginning. There we go. Do I have a control? Who's driving it? Can I drive? Okay. All right, so my understanding is, Chairman Kimbrough, you asked me to come today to discuss a few items. I think that you made that request of either Matt or Anne Marie. So let's go ahead and jump in. What I was asked to speak about today were high deductible health plans, and we've had this conversation before, so this will be a refresher for most of you. I also wanted to talk about some supplemental funding vehicles for the high deductible health plans, those being health savings accounts or health reimbursement accounts. And then I was also asked to speak about the possibility of combining our plan with the county with our school division. So I hope my school folks are going to stay for this piece of the presentation. So let's go ahead and jump in. Quick overview about the high deductible plan that we could have offered to our employees through the Commonwealth of Virginia's program called The Local Choice. It's a consumer directed plan, $2,800 individual deductible, $5,600 family deductible, all your wellness benefits, your mammogram, PSA tests, well child services are all paid by Anthem in front of the deductible, paid at 100%. And that $2,800 individual deductible or $5,600 family deductible also includes your pharmacy benefit. So today with the two plans that we offer on the county side, our employees have a fixed dollar copay for prescription medication. If we instituted the high deductible plan here on the county side, folks would pay whatever Anthem's allowed charge was for that medication. Two ways to really do that. You can look, because when you go into a high deductible health plan, you become really a consumer of your own funds. When we talk about the funding accounts that we'll get to in a moment. What a wise consumer does when they have to go get a prescription, they say, hey, here's my Anthem card. What is Anthem's for that medicine? And then another way to do it is you all probably seen this advertised on TV, you do GoodRx. And you make a decision, do I let this run through my Anthem benefits and I get deductible and out-of-pocket credit for that? Or if I'm someone that really doesn't use the plan that much and it was cheaper to go through GoodRx, I have the pharmacist run it through GoodRx. So again, if we went this route, we would give the employees some funding to help offset the deductible. But I just want to make sure you understand the mechanics of the plan, okay? After that deductible, then Anthem pays 80% of their allowed charges. Our employees would be responsible for 20%, up until they hit a $5,000 out-of-pocket maximum if you covered yourself only, or if you covered yourself and a child, a spouse, or full family, the out-of-pocket maximum would be $10,000. So a little bit of perspective. We offer two traditional plans today to our employees. We fund, and I'll show the spreadsheets in just a minute. Today on the county side, we fund 100% of the employee-only cost for our low option plan, which has a $500 deductible. Okay, so this would be a big change, and there would have to be education, employee education, if we decided to go this route. Okay. The out-of-pocket maximum for our low option plan that the county pays for at 100% for our employees has a $4,000 out-of-pocket maximum, $8,000 for family. Our buy-up plan that we let our employees buy today, it has a $250 deductible. Out-of-pocket maximum for that plan is $3,000 for an individual, $6,000 for a family. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of perspective as to how this plan would work if we decided to offer that. I need to say this as well. We're a smaller group in the program. We have less than 100 employees on our plan. If we continue to just buy our benefits on our own through the county, we can only offer two plan options. And there has been some interest potentially in a third option. We could not do that on our own. But if a decision is made that we were to start buying in combination with the school division, we could do that. And I'll get to that in a minute. Included, just as with our two traditional plans today, is the exact same robust dental benefits that our employees are used to, as well as vision. So that would not be a takeaway if we offered this plan as an option. And again, both this particular plan that we're speaking of, the high deductible plan, is health savings account and health reimbursement account compatible. And I'm going to go into, I want to make sure you understand the difference, because there is a big difference between those two options. Any questions on kind of the plan that I was asked to speak about? Any questions on that?
Just for clarity,
Yes, sir.
just the way that you phrased one comment made it sound as if there wouldn't be a choice, but that's not the intent. Yeah.
I'm not quite following you.
If we institute a high deductible plan, it's not everybody must subscribe.
We do not have to go that route. If we continue to buy standalone as the county, we can offer two plans.
Right.
We'd have to
Just wanna make sure that was
pick.
clear, David.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
We would have to pick between a traditional plan, and if we wanted to offer the high deductible plan, that would be our second option.
And if I could just chime in a little bit, something Dave said that I think is profound and probably bears repeating. If we go this route and we do implement a high deductible plan, it's going to have to come with extensive employee education. Because the employees have to shift their thinking a little bit from, well, the insurance is going to cover that, to now I've got to be more responsible for my own healthcare and question certain things like, does this have a less expensive generic type of prescription drug, for instance? What are the allowable charges, like Dave said? That is profoundly important. So if we do choose to go that route, which I kind of hope we do, I think we need to offer it as an option for our employees, then we're going to probably lean on Dave's staff to help educate small pools of employees that are interested in learning how to shift from that mindset to be good consumers of their healthcare.
Correct.
And involved and engaged consumers, and not just feel like they're part of the insurance, but they're actually in command of it.
If we structure the funding vehicle with either an HSA or an HRA, this can turn into a better plan than our buy-up plan today. It all depends on how we want to fund this supplemental fund that the employees would have access to. I hope that makes sense. I have one local government account that last year, they were offering the richest plan in this program. We offer the second richest plan in this program. They flipped to an all high deductible plan offering. It is a local government. They were pioneers and they went the HRA route. So we'll talk about that. Over here in your neighborhood, I've got Town of Colonial Beach that is looking at potentially doing the same thing this year. So let's walk through, if you understand kind of the mechanics of the medical plan, then let's talk about potentially how we would fund an account to help our employees pay that higher deductible and higher out-of-pocket expense.
Just one thing.
Yes, sir, Mr.
we
Kimbrough.
Haven't mentioned is the difference in the monthly premium.
I'm going to show you that. I've got a spreadsheet. I'm going to show you that. I'm going to show you your all's cost today. And I'm also going to share the school's cost as well. So you can see that. So again, supplemental funding vehicle. The first is a health savings account. These are qualified pre-tax dollars. Mr. Kimbrough, you've probably had something similar to this in the private sector. I believe you'd shared that with me previously. Those are hard dollars that would be expended by the county. Those are hard dollars that you all would put into a health savings account for our employees. The money that's put into a health savings account candidly is better than money that someone can put into their 403B, 457, 401k, if they were in the private sector. Those funds do not have federal income tax taken out of them on the way in. And if you use that money for qualified medical, dental, vision, or pharmacy expenses on the way out of the account, that money is never taxed. When you turn 65, which we're all going to do at some point, getting closer and closer every year, you can actually use that money to help pay your Part B Medicare premium. You can pay for dental services when you're on Medicare. You cannot pay for a Medicare supplement with those funds. At age 65, if you want to pull that money out and purchase a new vehicle, all you would do is what? Pay ordinary income tax on that money. So it's very flexible for the savvy consumer. It is a great way to save for all kinds of expenses down the road. But going into that account, those are hard dollars that we would have to expend. We would put that money in our employees' health savings account. If today is payday and we put it in today and they leave us tomorrow, they take that money with them. Okay, there's no use it or lose it provision. Whatever money they put in the account pre-tax, or you all put in the account pre-tax, rolls from year to year. There's no use it or lose it provision. Okay, so I guess the takeaway here is these are hard dollars we would have to budget for. Okay, the second way we could fund a supplemental funding vehicle is with what's called a health reimbursement account. This is more like a flexible spending account that you may have had at a previous employer. These are notional dollars. And what I mean by notional dollars, we would basically self-fund this fund on our own. Until an employee, we would provide debit cards. The schools use health equity. I would probably recommend if we do this, we would probably use health equity as well. Everyone would get a debit card who participates until our employees under the health reimbursement account swipe that card and spend that money. We've never gotten a bill for it. The neat thing about an HRA is only 30 to 40% of the money that we've set aside actually gets spent. The disadvantage is, well, it's the disadvantage to our employee, the financial advantage to the employer. If we did that July 1 of 2023, if that money wasn't spent by July 1, 2024, that money goes away, the account resets, we start a new plan year. So they can't carry that money forward. It's an appealing strategy. If I'm a savvy employee here, I would rather have the HSA. But I think for many of our employees, they'd like knowing that they had those funds available to them up to whatever dollar limit we decided based on budget to use for their qualified, and we could set this up however we wanted it. I would not recommend that we allow them to use HRA money for dental or vision expenses because their coverage for that would be just like they have today. I would only recommend that we allow them to use that money for medical or pharmacy expenses. Does that make sense? Kind of dry material. I apologize, guys. Ms. Kimbrough, does that make sense to you? So,
Can I
yes,
ask, can
yes,
you
ma'am.
can we set up both? Can you have an HSA and an HRA?
You could technically do that. You could set up both. Anne-Marie, I think internally we'd need to make a decision about, I think it would make more sense to decide which one is going to better suit the needs of our employees and our budget process here. We could technically do it, but I don't have anyone that does an HSA and an HRA. It's kind of a theoretical thing, how do you want to do this? How do you want to fund it? I hope that makes sense. Anne-Marie.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Any questions on that? Okay. So the last thing that I was asked to speak to was about the possibility of the county and the schools buying their health insurance together. Okay. Let me explain to you the rating process for each of your groups today and how that would change if we came together and bought health insurance for the whole community, county and schools. You all on the county side have 60 some employees on plan. You are what we call pool rated. So when the state and Anthem look at your group, they're looking at all groups that have between 2 employees on plan and 99 employees on plan. They're looking at how that pool performed. They're not looking at how Middlesex County in particular performed. This year, they're going to add one caveat to that. They are going to look at how your demographics, the age of your members, are they more male, heavily male than female? Females tend to cost more than males for health insurance purposes. We males are more of a risk for life insurance because we don't take care of ourselves. We're more of a risk for life insurance. But for health insurance, that's how you're going to be rated. And Anne-Marie has continued to ask me what this renewal is going to look like. And at this point, the only thing I can say is the pool that you all are a part of is going to average 7.9% is going to be the average increase. We could do better than that, or we could do worse than that, depending on our demographics compared to the pool. We should have already had these renewals. It's not Anthem that's the holdup, it's the state. They are looking at potentially rebating back to every group in the program this year, either 1%, 2%, or 3% of the annual premium. And I think the state's struggling to make a decision about that. I think that's why we don't have the renewals thus far. On the school side, I think it's important for you all to know that they're experience rated. So I sit down with Dr. Seitz, Karen, Murray, every quarter. We're able to tell them quarter by quarter by quarter what their next renewal is going to look like. These two in the back of the room are not happy with me right now because have you all heard? Thank you, Dr. Seitz. That's why we do this. Our expected, let me rephrase that. Our projection, if we just do the math, for the schools is a 14.2% increase. I don't think we're going to end up that bad because of the of the rebating that we're going to get from the state. State has over $300 million in reserves. Anthem has given them 3 scenarios. If we give every group 1% of premium, what's that going to require you to pull out of your reserve program? What if we do 2? What if we do 3? So I don't think we're going to end up with something like that, but it's going to be an increase. There's no doubt about that. And so I think it's important that you all understand that. If we combined we would all be rated together. So the way this process would work, if you're gonna ask me to explore this, we need to wait to get the county's renewal, so we know what that looks like. We then need to get the school's renewal, and if you all say, David, let's explore a combined proposal, I will ask Anthem to prepare that, and then we all have something to talk about. Today, the only thing I have are your current rates, okay? Yes, sir.
Why are the schools experience rated and not pool rated like us?
Because they're larger. They have more than 100 employees on plan. Karen, I think we're what, 160, somewhere around 160?
So they don't have the possibility of being pool rated across like all of the school systems in the Commonwealth?
Yeah, so two things. They are, and the credibility formulas, and I don't want to get too deep into the weeds, but the credibility formula is changing this year for groups their size. They have always been rated on current year claims, current 12 months of claims, blended with the pool that they're a part of, which are groups between 100 and 299 in size. They're going to start looking this year at current year claims for groups like the schools, prior year claims, and the manual of the pool component. So what that's going to do, Karen Murray will be able to tell me, I believe that blending with prior and manual was going to hurt the schools this year. So what I'm going to do for the school division is we're going to give them another projection, Anthem in the state, saying, hey, you've changed this pretty radically this year. If they were rated the way they were last year, this is what the renewal would look like, and fight to get that number reduced. They need to have a transition year. That's up to me to fight for that. So if we combined, we'd be a group of 220, let's say, and you would still be experience rated. So when we sat down with the schools, you all would be included in that to know quarter by quarter by quarter what the next renewal was going to look like. The other thing that's important to note is you would have to offer the same 3 plans. Because again, if the county and the schools joined, we'd be a group with more than 100 employees. We could offer 3 plans, just like the schools do today. Yes, Heather.
But it's different benefits though. The schools have.
They do. I'm going to show you.
Yeah.
I'm going to show you the rates and the plans that are offered.
But just to continue down that school of thought, this is a should be versus reality type statement / question all wrapped in one. Wouldn't the state have thought it beneficial for the entirety of the state to take all school systems, Fairfax, large ones, and kind of unite them in one pool so they spread that risk out above that entire class of employees that is a school employee as opposed to differentiating 100-person school districts and 10,000-person school districts. I can't get my mind around why that thought hasn't occurred. If they're going to class employees, why won't we just take the whole body and have one local choice for school systems?
Yeah, and that's a great question, Matt. There was Senate bill, and I should remember it from probably 5 years ago. We had Jerry Kilgore down in deep Southwest Virginia. I can't remember which county, he was representing. It's Washington County, Lee County, one of those in rural deep Southwest Virginia. He proposed, and it was passed, that DHRM, Department of Human Resource Management at the state, was to explore allowing local governments, school divisions, regional airports, regional jails into the state's program called CovaCare. So if you're a state employee, you have a program called CovaCare, right? The General Assembly did not allow that, but they said you may explore doing kind of a one-size-fits-all program for everyone, local government, school divisions. We went through the process. Candidly, nobody wanted the state's benefits. They wanted the state's funding of the benefits. If you work for the Commonwealth of Virginia, does anyone here work for the Commonwealth of Virginia or on Commonwealth of Virginia on CovaCare benefits? Matt Walker, you were. I'm not sure if you are still today, but you were. Commonwealth pays 90% of single, dual, and family coverage. So you think about that. They wanted the money, not the benefits. When we started to dig into it, I remember going through the process. I can remember one school division that would have been better off. It was Nottaway County Schools, a very poor division. They had very high health insurance rates. They were the only one that I was aware of that was going to be better off. So good point. Unfortunately, tried it, just did not work. And I don't think the General Assembly has an appetite, or I should say has had an appetite to allow, local government school divisions to literally be in the Commonwealth of Virginia COBA Care plan. Okay. And I know I'm probably going way longer than you all wanted me to. Any questions on any of that? Okay. I did want to add this, larger communities. I mean, let's think about it for a minute. Dr. Sides just stood up here and asked for an appropriation, right? You all appropriate every penny that goes to that school division, federal, state, and local dollars. The larger communities have already solved this problem. They said, listen, it's one pot of money. It's all for one for all. Let's come together. Let's share our resources. That just kind of takes one thing off the table every year when we're going through a budget process. So just, Chesterfield, Hanover, Henrico, City of Richmond they all buy together. They've already figured it out, right? And, some smaller ones in the Richmond metro area where I live, Goochland, Powhatan, both buy together. Here on the Northern Neck Middle Peninsula, I only have one that does it. It's interesting, and it's Richmond County and Schools. They did that when Morgan Quick came in. Gosh, I don't know. He's been county administrator 10, 11 years, Matt, something like that. They're the only other one over here that does that. Essex County and Schools used to buy together, but we got an interim county administrator that made them divorce. So they are now separate. So it's just a lot to think about. And I need to say this, and Tracy and Karen in the back know I'm going to say this in general, and it's not just in this community. Schools typically have higher costs. It is what it is. You're going to either fund that through an ask from the school folks, or it's just going to be in the rate, and we're going to just deal with it as a community. Okay.
This question is going to be really pie in the sky, but it's a curiosity. If Middlesex, Essex, Matthews, Gloucester, King and Queen, King William all decided, their school systems all decided they could buy together, could they do that?
Does anyone want to answer that question for Matt? Think about it. You're already Commonwealth of Virginia buys benefits for 140,000 employees. You're already part of the biggest pool in the state of Virginia. So I hear you.
I was actually talking about the school systems.
School systems.
If they could combine somehow and buy together.
Well, again, so let's say we took everyone on the Northern Neck Middle Peninsula. Would that be a group of 1,000, right? To go out and try to buy benefits on their own? Why would we want to do that when we're part of a group that buys with 140, 150,000 employees? That's by far Anthem's largest group in the state. It's Delta Dental's largest group. No, I would not recommend that.
Well, maybe I'm not asking the question right, or maybe I'm just not understanding. No, I'm under the impression that every year our schools are rated on their claims experience.
They are.
Because they're part of their group.
They're a group they're part of a group that has between 100 and 299 employees, as would we be if we combined with them.
Right. Scratch that.
Yep.
What if they were to combine with other school systems in our region and bought en masse?
Okay. So again, let's say that's a group of 1,000 employees. You all are already buying through the state, which goes to Anthem with 140, 150,000 employees. We can't trump that. We can't trump that on our own. But it's a logical question to ask, Matt. No doubt about that. And again, I think I said this. I should have already had the county's renewal 2 weeks ago, still waiting for it. I'm hoping it's going to be here any day. Your alls will come first because they typically get the pooled renewals out first. Then we'll see the schools. And then I think, we have another conversation after that. Okay. What I wanted to show you, this is actually your all's current. So what we've got here, we've got, the two plans that you all offer. You're going to be able to see kind of at a high level what the benefits are. The green is the Key Advantage 500 plan that you all fund fund off of. And you can see your single rate for Key Advantage 500 is $776. We give that plan to our employees for free. Okay, and then for any other tier, whether you bring your spouse, your full family, or if you want to buy up and add your spouse, your full family, doesn't matter here on the county side, we give you $776, do with it as you please, right? But again, so the two takeaways here are the plan offerings that we have and how we fund it, and your current annual employer contribution is about $660,000. So Anne Marie, that ought to look fairly familiar. And you can also, do I have a pointer on this one? Oh, I don't know. Anyway, but you can also see like our enrollment count, we've got 46 people that take the free plan, five duals, one family, et cetera. Oh, now it jumped. Was that you, Anne Marie? Okay. I didn't. Okay, thank you. Can you back me up a little bit, Anne Marie? All right, go.
Previous, that's not
Was-
any kind of.
Was that like the hook?
I need to explain this. They've been in a budget meeting for like 5 hours this morning. You're probably the highlight of their day.
Oh, God, that is very scary, Matt. So again, just to kind of remind you how you all fund what we do here for our employees on the county side. Anne Marie, I'm going to drive now if that's okay. Let's see.
David, on that, just want to capture on the last slide.
Yes, sir.
To me, if you add the estimated annual employee premium, the employees are paying about $78,000.
I had
Is that
I had my Matt take that out for the slide tonight. I believe that's correct, Lud.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to keep it as high level as I could. But again, this was in your all's renewal binders from last year. So I wanted to show you how we do this on the school side. Schools offers 3 plans. They do not offer a plan as rich as your buyout plan here on the county side. And they have offered these 3 plans since Thomas Taylor directed me to join this program, however many years ago that was. They offer the $500 plan, the $500 deductible plan. That's the plan in green. That's their best option. So they don't offer something as good as the $250 plan. Their mid-level plan is the $1,000 deductible plan. And then they do offer the high deductible health plan. And if you look, they've got 30 some people that take that high deductible health plan. So you can see they don't pay for a plan in full except the high deductible plan. And what they do, because the premium is less than the $707 they give employee only folks, they put $65 a month into a health savings account for those employees. What they do, again, they don't fund as much as you all do for a single only contract, but they do a graduated funding for dual and family. And Matt, that's something that you've asked Anne Marie and I to explore for this year. So again, I just wanted to show you that, these are the 3 plans that the schools offer. We would, if we decided to buy together, we would have to offer the same 3 plans. As long as you met minimum funding guidelines, which you both do, we would not have to fund the plans the same. However, I will tell you that it's awfully nice, whether you work for the county or the schools, you're offered the same 3 plans and you pay the same thing for it. And again, that's a decision that you all would have to make. Any questions on that, Karen or Dr. Seitz? Anything that I should add to that? Good with that? All right. That's the slide we've been waiting for. What questions do you have for me? I know that was a lot to take in, a lot of detail, but I think that kind of hits hopefully what you all needed to contemplate. So my question to you all, and I don't know if we need a resolution or not. Again, I'm awaiting both your renewal and the school's renewal. I think it's probably, if there's an interest on your side, I don't want to speak for Dr. Seitz and Karen, but I think there's an interest on their side that we look at a combined proposal at least to see what it looks like.
I wouldn't have a problem with looking to see what the proposal looks like. I think your time frame is going to be crucial. I don't see the county voting to do anything out of the ordinary, at least this year now, with some months of discussion and arm pulling and arm twisting that might come about. But I would say it's probably unlikely that we would make a decision, and that's just my opinion on that in a short time frame.
Are you specifically speaking to combining?
Yes, in combining, I think that's going to take a lot of planning. Maybe not so much on your end, but on what the opinions are from the school side, what the opinions are from the county side, what the difference in the cost may or may not be. That won't be easy to just do on a 20-minute slideshow.
What I would recommend is once, if you all give me permission tonight to explore this option, we get your renewal, we get the schools, we ask for a combined proposal. We then put everything in spreadsheets, show you all, pull everyone together for a meeting, and we kind of hash it out. I don't think it would be a long drawn out process at all. I think one of the toughest things would be you all, I don't want to speak for the school folks, but we've never offered a plan as rich as your 250 plan because candidly, we haven't been able to afford it. So, I think you all would have to make a decision. Could we do without, that very rich copay based plan? I think that would probably be the biggest hurdle. Then you all would have to decide, do you want to keep your current funding strategy the way it is? Would you like to adopt something more like the schools have done? Do we want to fund the same for the county and the schools if we went that route? I don't think it should be a long drawn out process at all. Any other questions for me?
Just a comment. And I think that it's worth taking a look at the combined. It sounds like it's really just a matter of making a request of Anthem and
Correct.
getting that data. And of course, I love data. And so I'd love to see that. I would like to see a lot of energy around how can we construct a high deductible plan with an initial sign up contribution to the health savings account in order to make it to essentially neutralize the risk to employees to make the conversion and understand the lower premium that they're going to have to pay ongoing. As you probably may be aware, the school system paid $1,000 bonus to its employees. The county chose not to do that with an eye towards possibly directing those funds into establishing savings accounts for employees. So in my mind, this is the highest priority moving piece for our upcoming budget that is a lot of work that has yet to be done. So I'd really like to see the energy around that.
Sure.
And we're on an expedited budget approval calendar this year to try to help the commissioner and treasurer out with billing and tax bills.
Give me a feel for that, Matt, in terms of the timeline.
We'd like to probably be a public hearing about 3 weeks earlier than normal.
So that would be when?
Mid-April, mid to early April.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have to let the Commonwealth know what we're doing. Can't remember if they've amended that somewhere around the 1st of April. Okay. And just so you know, bills would remain separate. You all have a 4-7 group number. You would still get your own bill. You'd be able to reconcile. Anne Marie would be able to do that. Schools would get their own bill. They have a 4-8 group number. So we would still have independent administration. All we would really be doing, we'd be joining forces for rating purposes, for a rating methodology. That's really what we'd be doing.
One of the recommendations I would make as we move forward and with looking at that is that we include our sheriff's office and Department of Social Services into the mix. So we can look at everyone hit across all of, our side of the fence, and we get their input on it. And especially if we implement a high deductible plan, we're going to need to start reaching out, involving, educating employees on how to make that choice.
And candidly, Matt, if I may, if we offer a high deductible health plan, I think we would need mandatory education sessions.
Yes.
It's going to be a big, once they get it, once they understand it, because the county is going to contribute a certain amount, and we don't know what that amount is yet, towards that $2,800 deductible. The big education piece for the employees is, hey, instead of buying up to that 250 plan and sending your money to Anthem, to an insurance company where you're never going to get it back, take that money, put it in your bank account, put it in your HSA account, and that's your money forever. So there's just a lot of education there about benefits and the funding and whatnot.
So I'm supportive as well, but the education piece is critical. It's critical. So we have some things to do to line out and make sure that the opportunity can be captured. But then even if the opportunity is captured to the point where we can offer it to all of these people and take advantage of the pooling, we have to take the horse to water and get it to drink, so to speak. So I think the education is key, but you reminded me, Lud, that we did look at doing what the schools did with compensation and a bonus. And so that was a good reminder. I'm really waiting to determine if we did nothing. In fact, I don't want it to be that if this doesn't come to pass, we've not taken that opportunity. And we also mentioned earlier today that there's ARPA money that we're looking to find a home for. I'm sure we'll find a home for it, but that was what we were talking about this morning, is that this money would go nicely into a high deductible plan if it makes sense, if the proposal looks right, if the state does what we're assuming they'll do within reason, and if we have the education in place for employees as we roll it out. But I still applaud the schools and offering the bonus when they did, and I'm still waiting to determine whether I said we're done there or not. So if this doesn't come to pass, I'd like to revisit whether we make that decision or not, and not just sort of table it and say we've already made that decision in deference towards a high deductible plan. If the high deductible plan doesn't happen, then I'd like to go back to the original debate that we were having about whether or not we should mimic what the school did there and not just pretend that that's in the past.
Mr. Chairman, do I need a resolution to move forward with the joint proposal, or are we good with just doing that?
I think a consensus to develop an alternative, and I
Okay.
think you've got that.
Okay.
One other question that came up this morning that I thought was a very good one, getting a fairly decent idea of what ongoing costs we could expect to continue to fund the program after the initial startup, year to year, as we get new employees or employees come off or want to come on, that type of thing. And you more than anybody have experience with people that have implemented these. What types of costs would we be looking at in the future?
To Lud's point, to me, if I were going to start this up, first time out when we offer the high deductible plan, we do our funding up front to help the employees. Ongoing, once we have either we would do that at the initial onset of this program, or we would do it for a new hire. If they want the high deductible, we go ahead and give them their funding. After that, I would probably recommend month by month, which is the way you all do it, correct? Karen, you all do month by month. We want to help them to get them started. But then after they've been in the program, after that initial deposit, I think we could probably fund it month by month. Those dollars are fixed. It's just a head count times 12. The bigger unknown at this point is, what are we going to look like once we join forces? If we did it for this July, what would our renewal look like for next year? It's going to be a blend of what you all have and what the schools have.
So we could affect their percentage points, maybe or not.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Anything else for me?
Thanks very much.
Thank you all.
David,
Thank
a lot
you.
of- a lot of information. Really appreciate it. All right, next up is the Middlesex County Museum. Welcome.
Sitting so right, you're gonna trust me to find that.
Yeah, Holly, fine. Thank you for having us. I'm Marilyn South, president of the County Museum. Holly Horton is our executive director. I'm going to just ask Holly to hand these to each of you. It's our end of year 2022 budget sheet, some high points, and a list of our board of our Advisory Board and regular board. And I want to thank Dr. Bishop for sitting here patiently waiting. He is a member of our board. And Julie Bray was going to be with us, but grandmother needs took precedence, so she couldn't make it. We're here to tell the status of the Middlesex County Museum. And we have 355 years as a county of history to tell, which is mammoth. And we have a lot of information concerning that history. And that's just the history to the English settlers. That's not the history prior to that. And our accessions, the earliest one we have is from 1739. And it is a muster roll here in Saluda with our militia right before the revolution, which will take part and will have definitely used for the 250th. I think the big thing we realize is we need a professional. It's way too much history for any one volunteer to do. We can't do it. It's just out of the question. And we're lucky enough that Holly has accepted coming back to us. Her frustration, my frustration over the years has been there, no doubt about it. And I think it's rightfully there. We can't expect in 6 months to tell 355 years. And it isn't any one topic. It's multiple topics that are involved. We have artifacts, documents, photographs, oral histories, and I don't think there's an awareness of the significance of our county history, particularly in the colonial period. It was huge. It was huge. And we need to tell a cohesive story of our county history, not bits and pieces here and there. And we need to utilize vision, auditory, tactile senses in doing all that. And Dr. Bishop can certainly share any thoughts he has with teaching children to incorporate all those different things. It isn't a matter of a book on your shelf. It's a lot more than that. I think our educational opportunities are the colonial history, our indentured servant history. People don't realize the volume of indentured servants that were in this county. And also the communities of free African Americans that were in this community. People aren't aware of all these histories. Holly and I know tidbits of it, and we know enough tidbits to know it's incredible. We are only, unfortunately, able, and it's stretching us thin, to afford Holly 10 hours a week. So that's where we are. And I'm going to have Holly share with you some thoughts she has. And then Dr. Bishop, if you'd like to say anything now or after Holly.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for being on the board as well. But we've been partnering with Holly and in the Middlesex County Museum and Historical Society with our 5th grade teacher to work on curriculum and build that curriculum into our SOL. So really making it really tangible for the students that live here, get to see and touch, and we're just cracking the nut to make sure that the students have an interest in our county. I hope it allows our students to really value Middlesex and stay here as well. But that's just for me, and I'm an educator, but I appreciate all that you're doing now.
Thank you very much. Holly?
I'm a very visually oriented person, so I brought a lot of pictures with me. So I hope you will enjoy the variety of timeframes that we're looking at during this slideshow, and also the depth of the types of relationships that we're illustrating here between family members, between neighbors, between the government and the residents of that community where they live. Middlesex County has been blessed with a long and storied life. She's a grand dame with thousands upon of descendants who have inhabited her lands, indigenous peoples, in the 4 centuries of settlement by her English and African migrants. I have a picture here of Oakenham. I have African-American family from the turn of the last century, and I have a cutaway of the new exhibit that we have up in the concerning the Native Americans who were here before the English and African arrived. We have a pristine location nestled against Chesapeake Bay on the Manila Peninsula. It's a rich history here full of people seeking new worlds and new opportunities in them. Some entered the county and country through their own volition, and some under the duress of slavery's bondage. But all have helped to shape the cultural landscape that we call Middlesex County today. Through the years, we've had many residents that live lives in the spotlight. A Kentucky Derby winner, an esteemed Marine Corps Lieutenant General, several Medal of Honor and Purple Heart awardees, civil rights activists, Presidential Medal of Freedom and Honor awardees, the House of Burgesses members, and Virginia State secretaries and governors. Our county residents were active at the county level. They also left to be at the colony level when we were an entry point into the colony of Virginia that formed into the United States of America. They stretched into the government of the state of Virginia, and then also at the upper levels. I show you here one of our Kentucky Derby winners that was a resident of a picture here of Middlesex County. This was at the early 30s. And then I have a picture of the Salute Hotel and also the Neal and Smithers General Mercantile. That is both of those two on the left have been torn down. Our museum showcases the personal lives and social interactions of the people that reside here, where they lived, how they dressed, what they did in their free time. Through that lens, we look at multiple aspects of life in Middlesex, both on the water and on the land, at home, work, and leisure. It's a unique and special place, the museum. As a cultural institution, our museum enhances people's lives and creates a special experience outside the normal realm of boating, swimming, water skiing, picnicking, and fishing that a lot of county visitors encounter when they visit Middlesex. We have multi-generational families that come in. We have with young children, we have grandmothers interacting with daughters and those grandchildren. It's a wonderful experience because we have objects that they can use as talking points to discuss the stories that are being illustrated, but also stories that the grandparents carry with them as they come to share their life stories. The museum provides a special place that speaks to our inheritance, a home that fosters our stories and curates our narrative, so all can enjoy and immerse themselves in the wonder of Middlesex. We're preserving our past to educate and enrich the present and the future. In 2022, we reconfigured the floor plan of the museum to enhance the visitor's experience. We created new exhibits, including the opening of Middlesex Early Inhabitants. It showcased fossils and Native American artifacts found in the local waters and soils of Virginia. Arrowheads, grinding stones, axes, and modern ceremonial items donated by Native descendant William H. Loving Bear to the museum were included. Additionally, two were Nancy Gibbs' private collection of fossils and shells, teeth, bones, and even dinosaur excrement from the animals that lived here before humans came. The children loved it. I was also present at the Oyster Festival in costume, helping with education and understanding about what life was here in early colonial times. The Oyster Festival usually celebrates the inside of the shell, and we celebrated the outside. We attended with Jenga wood blocks. We taught the kids about colonial brick building patterns used here in Middlesex buildings. I illustrated a variety of buildings. We have Wilton here at the bottom. Brick was a popular and important material to build with in the 1700s. It was sturdy, it lasted a long time, and made from materials that Middlesex had a lot of: clay and sand for the bricks, sand, ash, and oyster shells for the mortar. So all of that was very prevalent. The kids loved it, as you can see here. Hands-on learning experience. We met with Dr. Bishop, and four of his teachers and administrators came to the museum and toured. We looked at the curriculum of what was going to be included in the 5th grade, and we talked about joining with them to develop a curriculum built around county history. We're utilizing the museum's extensive collection as a project focal point. Official primary source documents were added as supporting materials to immerse the students in our stories that also met the SOL guidelines. Students at the elementary school began using the new materials this year. I have a picture here of Dr. Cook. She came and was part of a team that was doing an excavation in the county archaeologically. We looked into having the kids come to the site. It was not going to be practical. So we actually brought her to the kids with a wonderful slide presentation. And she discussed about the artifacts that they had found in the county. We have an intern at the high school level that also comes on a weekly basis, twice a day during the last period of the school day. Dr. Bishop and I are in discussion on trying to figure out other ways to get the middle school curriculum involved and tied into our Middlesex County history, and also looking at the high school at a deeper level also. So we ask you to join us, discovering history together, unearthing, looking at family trees, looking at upstairs of buildings. I actually have a picture here of me and Lud Kindrow's knees down at the bottom of the photograph. We actually went into the very attic of the building that we're standing in today, and we found some artifacts. I have a bucket, we're guessing from the 1920s. It has a wooden handle. So there's history everywhere, and sometimes it's been overlooked. It's put into attics, it's pushed under a bed, it's left in a building that's left to decay. We have resources that have been published in the past, and we have letters and journals. You know, history is all around us. So we ask that you consider that as important and value it, because we are, it's a wonderful source of a sense of ourselves, but it's also a wonderful resource for people that aren't from here to learn more about the establishment of our colony here in America versus Africa or England and thereof. Are there any questions that I can answer for any?
How many people visit the museum every year?
That usually fluctuates with the time of year. January is usually our very slowest month of all. But do you
On the last couple of years with COVID, probably 2,000. But it's very difficult because we don't have on-ground events. And that really kind of is not in our favor. We don't have the space. We can only do but so much where we are. And so much of the space that we do have, you all have been in there, is taken up with exhibits and our artifacts. We have 2 big storage rooms. So COVID time prior to that, if we had an event, we could have 3,000 something. It depended on events. Events are a huge help to bringing people in, but we're limited in that.
I know there's some work being done between the Historical Society group and the museum, and maybe even Trent's involved with some of that. Have you seen any type of increase in people visiting the website or calling or requesting information?
It's the latest figures on each of the others. In our mom site, I don't know that off the top of my head. I can find it out and send it to you. But I know that our webmaster did share with me that people are looking for our monthly newsletter. They're kind of fishing in there. Where is it? Why isn't it out yet?
We saw numbers increase after the Oyster Festival. I had lots of people. I was personally there on Thursday when the educational day. And then I was also there on Friday when it was open to the general public. And we had a lot of people stop by that had not been to the museum. They had interesting personalized questions about their house in particular, or their section of the county in particular, or a family name. So we had some dialogue about that. And then I had brought our historical buildings book with me, and we were able to flip through it and get a feel for some of the things they were talking about. And then they came as visitors later. So we just had a lady come through who's a teacher, and she was wanting to bring a group of teachers in the summertime down with answering questions about colonial development. So our records are a blessing. They tell so many stories about the people. So in working with the schools, we're trying to get those stories into a format that the kids can understand and relate to. And then to be able to put that together into an exhibit where it becomes 3D and people can walk around it, through it, understand it, listen to it, give these people a voice and bring them back to our county in a form that people can appreciate.
I think one of the things Holly, myself, Julie Bray, and Tyler Bradabaugh did last week, we went up to the Virginia Museum of History and Culture and looked up Middlesex County. And there are 495 items up there that are Middlesex County property. 55 of those are the backup materials for the book, A Place in Time, that was written by the Rutmans describing Middlesex County. And we're not talking about a little book like this. We pulled out one book about this thick. We pulled out that book because 2-3 years ago, we were contacted about a rumor that the Clark from Lewis and Clark had stayed in Urbana at the Gressett House the night before he left. And the people who have created the Lewis and Clark Trail north-south wanted to come to Middlesex. It's going to King and Queen because Lewis is from there. That's undeniable. He was from there. So when we were up at the Museum of History and Culture, we first had a 5-foot by 6-foot map that was brought out to us that the Rutmans had drawn from 1650 to 1750. I can't imagine the number of hours it took to show the land plats and the plantations. And on there, we noticed 2 plats for the Clark family. We went, whoa, wait a minute. Because so far we were hitting dead ends. We thought, well, maybe we can go back on the land plat and move there forward. Holly's working on DNA. So we're back into this Clark thing, because if we can prove it, then the eastern branch of the Lewis and Clark Trail comes to Middlesex County. These are the things that come up. But Holly's 10 hours a week. I know nothing about any of this. I'm a registered nurse for 43 years. This is, I respect history. And I know enough of my own personal family history that there are a lot of people before me, but I'm where I am because of what they did. And if more people understood they're where they are because of other people's sacrifices, maybe it would be better appreciated.
And we as a county are here today because of these earlier residents who were here early on and made their contributions, made their due diligence, and did their blood, sweat, and tears into the development of this land, of this peninsula of Middlesex County. So we appreciate your time today very much and taking the time to listen. And we'd love to have you come and visit the museum. Bring
Thank
your
you.
kids, your grandkids, your next door neighbors, your wife's spouses, and next of kin.
Can I ask one more question?
Mhm.
And in lieu of the correct words, do y'all have a traveling show that, I know we talked about, you mentioned events, and I know you sometimes are subject to, particularly here, would be difficult for a big event for parking, et cetera, but do you guys take the show on the road, so to speak?
When I was here before, we did. And
Okay.
that's something, we still have all that as materials. So I was part of several programming for homeschoolers that went around. And I went into the public schools with some programming, again, talking about different aspects of, I took some of our historical documents with me before. I brought magnifying glasses. They actually looked at how the things were structured, handwriting versus they're not learning handwriting in school any longer. So it was a way for them to kind of immerse themselves into a different world that doesn't exist anymore. So they enjoyed that a lot. And we have a lot of, they really, 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 really love maps, especially the older ones, like I showed on one of the earlier pictures of when we were first explored early on during the late 1500s, early 1600s. A lot of things were sketched out and drawn out. And those early illustrations are just speak so well to what people, were experiencing. And then also now how we can compare that. Marilyn was discussing the maps that the Rutmans drew. They were overlaying their maps of how the tracts of land were put together as plats in the 1600s over the map of Middlesex County from the 1960s. So you could see the road, you can see where the bridges were, you could see how that stretched into present time based on how they put together the land and how it was sold originally. So it was really fascinating to watch the county grow and what happened through the years. So I was a hospice volunteer for 11 years, and I heard a very poignant story that was read that when you go to funerals and things, it's always the dash in between the two numbers that's important. And that's what we're telling is the dash in between, not just when they were born and when they died, but what they did during that time. And it makes a difference to all of us.
And I think too, Don, it can work the opposite. There are items at the Virginia Museum of History and Culture, like the chair from Rosegill, that could be brought to Middlesex County if we had the right situation to house them on a lend basis. And that would bring people. In 1938, you'll see in the numbers I gave you, there were 2,000 visitors to Middlesex County Museum. We are the oldest, first in the state of Virginia. And there is so much potential, but Holly and I can see it. I think Dr. Bishop can see it. Julie Bray can see it, but there are so many people who can't. And it's kind of like beating your head against that brick wall. And it's, each person has their personal interest area, but there's a much bigger story, and it's fascinating.
So
Just a final comment too. My wife works for the Jamestown Yorktown Foundation. She's jealous that I'm on the board. But it's just interesting to hear her perspective of what they do at Jamestown Yorktown. Having a museum like this that is a part of that history, but not necessarily part of the Jamestown Yorktown Foundation. This is really kind of like the extra thing that this community really needs, because it really tells a different story. It tells a very specific story of Middlesex, and that's not what Jamestown Yorktown does. It's more a larger scope. So very proud that this is here. So I'm very interested, and thank you for inviting me to your.
Thank you for helping us. I really appreciate it.
So just one last quick question. Great presentation, great topic. And I guess I'm just unclear. Are you coming to us with an ask to fully fund? I just got my budget requests and I haven't reviewed them, and I'm just scrambling to find, is this the formal request of something, or is this just a heads up that you're going to be asking for this?
B.
Okay.
Well, we won't be coming to the Friday budget thing either as a single museum. That was whatever reasons. Mom will be coming.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're giving you a heads up on is we cannot do this alone. We can't do it. And we need help. So however that gets figured out, I don't know, but it's a bigger history than we are.
Yeah, no, we've had some conversations today where there've been a number of things discussed where I thought, gosh, I was thinking about that, but I never circled back to it. And now somebody's found it. And I think we might be on to fixing something or making something better. And that's when I'm reminded of just how important it is to have many, many supervisors and many, many departments. And I'm not advocating for big government at all, but I am advocating for the notion that no one of us is going to solve any of these problems. It is going to be us coming together and looking at things like how rich our history is, and how with some funding and some regionalization, we've already done a lot of this. If you look at what MOMS is, that wasn't called MOMS a couple of years ago. We've aggregated what museum infrastructure we have, and we're being efficient, and we're recognizing that our stories from these different centuries actually tie into a lot of other regional museums, and there are opportunities there. And to take nothing away from what all of you have done, you're coming to us and saying there's so much more we could do if we invested.
And that's the county museum. We don't have the town of Urbana owning our building. and paying all those costs. And we don't have the Maritimes land. We don't have a boat. We don't have any of those. So we're on a different level in our ability. And there, let's face it, there are not as many people who would like to come and sit down and look through Rutman's book than would like to go for a boat ride. I mean, that's just a reality, and we accept it. Yeah.
Well, and Marilyn, I don't want to put you on the spot, but put a finer point on what John was asking. If there is a funding need next fiscal year, we kind of need to know what that is.
Okay. We can give you a
So,
number. We can figure that out.
Is it to fund Holly at $12,000?
That would be awesome.
Well, I'm asking, I'm not saying.
Yes.
Okay.
I can say that, and I think the board would agree. We have to have a professional. I can't do it, and there isn't anybody else I know of that would be willing to step up to the plate and put all these pieces of our history together.
Well, and just a little history, I think that a few years back, many years back, I'm dating myself, there was a brief discussion about the county potentially taking ownership of the lands and then owning that and maintaining the buildings and things like that.
We're open to any suggestion.
Well, not resurrecting that, just throwing it out there for a little bit of context. It's something that y'all been trying to noodle on for quite some time.
We just know that we need help. And however we can work that out, we're glad to do it. But we don't want to not exist.
Right, very good.
So do you all need me to do anything else? Is there any?
I heard an ask and I've got it, Ventures budget, we'll look at it in our next budget,
And one last comment, I'll be quiet. I think because we're a county museum, I get asked all the time, how much is the county helping you? Our citizens see it as a county museum, and I think there's an expectation level the county supports. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm gonna give us a recess until 5:50.
Mark, can you hear us?
I
Can't hear you, Mark.
And me?
There we go. Thanks.
You can? Okay.
We hear you fine now, Mark.
Okay. All right. And are you ready to start? I'm sorry.
Yes, we are ready to go.
Okay, you have a resolution before you regarding the Hummel Field project. And basically what this is a resolution to have the county take on the obligations for two matters that are actually Oscar's responsibility under the comprehensive agreement. The first one is, you'll recall, the $30,000 that was paid to the Putts for the navigation easement. The county actually paid that amount. And then the other one is that in order to obtain the DEQ permit to carry on the project, there was a Department of Historic Resources approval required. DHR required a memorandum of understanding between DEQ, DHR, county, and the Perkinson Trust regarding sound noise mitigation against the Perkinson Trust property. And in that MOU, the county entered into or is doing a planting plan to put up bushes and small trees adjacent to the Perkinson property. You all know this already. And Charlie Beam's been working with Perkinson and working with a contractor, the landscaping contractor, to install the bushes and trees. That's not quite finalized, I think, but pretty close. And the cost of that is going to be between $10,000 and $12,000. So this resolution, and then in the carrying out the project, Oscar did run into significant subsurface conditions that increased his costs. Those costs were not all reflected in what was submitted to the Department of Aviation. He ended up eating some of those costs, as I understand it. I've not verified that, but I think that's probably accurate. And so Oscar asked if the county would take on these two items, that is the cost of the PUT easement and the cost of the landscaping. So sort of an offset for what he encountered in extra expenses in the rest of it. And to the members of the board, had a meeting with Lud, Reggie, Matt, and Heather a couple of weeks ago, I guess it was, to go over this, and had the two board members' initial approval. Of course, it obviously comes to the board for the approval, but that's basically what this resolution does. If you all approve that, and then Oscar said he would sign it, of course, I should. If you all approve that, then to the extent that the two costs have not been submitted to the Department of Aviation for reimbursement, they will be. The PUT may have been already. That's a question for Charlie and the finance folks. And then the cost of the planting plan isn't known yet because that's not finalized, as I say. But let's assume that it's $10,000. If the Department of Aviation approves both of those expenditures, which it would normally, then the cost of the county will be a total of about $8,000 or $9,000. That is 20% of the 30,000 plus 12,000, probably maximum. So, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, that is the resolution, and seeking your input and any questions, of course, and your action on it.
Thank you. John?
Yeah, this is either the first I am aware of this or the first that I'm really having it presented to me in a way that I can understand it. What is it in the contract that was not clear that leaves us pursuing this? Was there a gap in the contract? And maybe the questions for Ms. Lewis.
No, there's no.
No, sir, I would refer to
Well, I
Mr.
can
Flynn.
answer.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I can answer that. There's no gap in the contract. Oscar's argument is on the planting plan. He says, well, I didn't approve that. Well, it's clear that in the contract, it's clearly his responsibility to obtain all permits, and part of obtaining the permit from DEQ is doing this planting plan. And I, as your all's representative, was in contact with Oscar several times, and he understands that that's the case. That this is where it was going, and that's what it would require. So to say so Oscar never said he would pay it, but it was made clear that one, he understands it was his obligation, and two, that this is what it was going to take to have that happen, to make to get the DEQ permit. And without the permit, there would not have been a project.
Yep.
Same
And so
thing,
I guess,
basically.
Mark,
It's and I will say it's the same thing basically on the PUT easement. Oscar and I had several conversations, a number of conversations about that. In fact, and he understands that was his obligation. In fact, those conversations led to his doing the things he did with this Commonwealth, so that the Department of Aviation no longer required an easement for the other property, the Roberts property. So there's a lot of negotiation, a lot of discussion.
I guess what I need help. Yeah, and we were part of a lot of that, and we had a lot of closed session meetings, and we had a lot of, we've incurred expenses, and we've lived up to the contract, and there were expenses above and beyond what we expected. And that's contracting as far as I'm concerned. So I'm curious, what evidence is Oscar presenting that shows us that these overages are something that now are something that we share in this partnership because we've got overages too. And we don't have anybody to go to. It reminds me of the peanut butter analogy earlier. And so it also reminds me of a president that used to say the buck stops here. I haven't heard an argument that really tells me why we're going against our contract.
The only argument I have is twofold. One, Oscar certainly asked for this, and I think both may object how strenuously, I don't know, to being forced to pay it. But two, and Charlie may have some more information on this than I do, that there were subsurface conditions under the runway that were not planned on, that took a lot of extra excavation work that cost a lot more than this amount. That's all.
Are there any other questions?
I guess, yeah, there's a question of those that met with Mr. Flynn and Oscar on our behalf and felt like this was meritorious of a resolution. What's our logic that I'm missing that we should make Oscar whole for what he feels he's not whole for and he's coming to us? I don't understand.
Well, I suggest that we have a motion for the resolution before we discuss among ourselves. So if there are no more questions for Mark, I'll entertain a motion.
I have a question, if I could.
Mm-hmm.
Mark, you still within hearing voice? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Before any sort of motion is made, I got two questions for you. Is there anything else that would potentially come up as a regards to cost of what's been done on the airport and what's continued to be done as to are we going to have to fight another battle later on? And I'm looking for your opinion on that.
Right. I think not. I've gone through the work that's been done where the airport is and its condition, and talking with Charlie. Yeah, you're pretty much there. You're back. I'm sorry, there was like the evil overlords sign came on my screen for a second. Thought maybe been hacked. Anyway, maybe Lancaster County attacked or something. But anyway, I'm sorry. No, I think that you're very much done. There's a matter of having to put up signs at the two ends of the runway. Oscar said he would get a sign contractor to put those up. And those are the signs advising pilots to go straight out when they leave the airport. But that issue is no money at all, really. So unless Charlie knows something else, I don't.
How about the improved LED lighting? Who's going to be responsible for that?
That's clearly on Oscar, and he has not indicated any problem with carrying that out. So that one's that's taken care of, I think, as I understand it, and already in the works. And that was applied to the Department of Aviation for reimbursement already.
I didn't have an opportunity to meet with Oscar on this, but I did have a telephone conversation with him. And one of the arguments that he conveyed to me verbally was he didn't feel it's right to make him pay for something that he was not involved in negotiating. He wasn't involved in negotiations. Those were happening absent him. And he felt like if he was able to negotiate those terms, he would have been able to do better. Now, that's a lot of verbal indication from him. He just felt like he was left out of that process, therefore shouldn't be made to pay for it. There were legal reasons why he could not get into negotiating easements because there was a likelihood we may be taking people to court. But I just wanted to make sure I convey that because that's one aspect of the discussion that I don't think has been brought to light yet.
Okay, if there are no more questions.
And I do have to
is
say
there
that,
a motion?
and I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Go ahead.
Yeah, if I may follow up on that, I will say that Oscar and I had numerous conversations throughout the process for both of those. And he was aware that they had to be done and that the costs were going to be what they're going to be.
Thank you. All right, I will entertain a motion for resolution R 2023-02.
I'll make motion that we approve resolution R 2023-02.
Motion by Mr. Jesse. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Williams. Okay. Discussion.
Mr. Chair, I wonder if we're not also telegraphing a precedent here. We talk about precedents a lot. And if we're going to contract with people on projects and then basically ignore the contract in favor of the person that we're contracting with, it's just a really, I mean, over $9,000 or $30,000, that's a real precedent that we're setting that, you know, when it comes down to it and finishing projects, it really doesn't come down to the contractual obligations. It comes down to who comes and says there's something that we want to be paid for.
I understand that perspective and I certainly respect that a contract is a contract. But if it comes to setting precedents, I would love for this to be a precedent for a citizen in our county to contribute at the level that Oscar has to give us a brand new airport at virtually no cost to the county and to absorb in his construction every unexpected additional cost and to make sure that the airport exceeds the vision that we originally had by upgrading wherever he found it appropriate. And we're talking about $8,000 at the end, which is a very small fraction of the extra contribution that I feel our public-private partner has contributed to this. And if this project is a precedent for what we're going to see in the future, I think that would be great. That was sort of how I came out supporting this.
Yeah, and I think if we had 7 airports, it might be a precedent in the future, but there are not a lot of public-private partnerships for small airports that need extensions that we don't necessarily need. This is not something that the community was crying for. This is something that Oscar really wanted, and he has a small group of citizens that are behind him with this, and I'm happy to contribute in the small way that you're referencing that we contributed, but we did our part per the contract. And if he's down to $8,000 in balking, he is setting a precedent. That's my stance. So there you go.
Understood. Other comments?
I just say, you know, at the end of the day, we have a safer airport for our citizens. And it's been aligned and a little bit longer. And it's making our citizens safer. And that's what our job here, welfare, health, and safety of the county.
And I would say I agree with all of that, but we are doing more with less and we are doing it with contracts.
Any other discussion? Have a roll call, please.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Jesse,
Aye.
Mr. Coons,
No.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have a planning director report only update on pages 51 through 54 and county engineer project updates. Mr. Beam.
Mr. Chair, I actually have 2 items. One is the airport. Again, going back to what we had previously discussed about the planting plan. We have a revised plan that has been submitted. I received it yesterday. Have not had an opportunity to go through it. I will do that. I've talked with Mr. Perkerson. I will review that plan with him. I will also submit that to the Virginia Department of Aviation per the memorandum of understanding. Have him review that. If we come to agreement,
then we will implement that plan and the planting will take place this spring, provided we have agreement on the part of Mr. Perkson and the Virginia Department of Aviation. The second item is the Puller Building renovation. As you know, we did the structural analysis on December 7th. We have received a report, but it is not complete. But I have an executive summary. It appears that the building does meet the category risk 4 assessment. There are a few items that we are looking at that we need to do a little more detail. We'll have the full report hopefully by next week. We have a meeting tomorrow with at 9 o'clock, yes, sir, or actually 9:30. I'm sorry. We did not take in consideration your bus schedule. My apologies. However, Mr. Bushy found out that he has injured himself and may not be able to attend as well. So we have a meeting tomorrow. We are bringing the engineer in, MEP, structural, and architectural. So we're going to start the detailed design or kick off the detailed design. So hopefully we'll kick that project off. Other than that, that's all I have to report.
You're welcome. Wonderful. Thank you. Let's see, next we have Timmons. Ken, we're up on pages 55 for the contract addendum. Welcome, Ken.
Thank you. Chairman, members of the board, I'm here to discuss the services for copying as well as design and additional services that have been requested for health building 1, 2, and 3. I've got a PowerPoint that summarizes some of the items at a high level, and then I'm going to go through your proposal that I'll submit to the county in more detail and expand on everything that I've submitted and invite you to ask any questions that you think have.
Yeah, mic back on. Is that turn? Good.
The microphone. I think I turned it off.
Is that better? Thank you. Next slide. Or am I running it? Okay.
Because I couldn't find the PowerPoint, so I'm doing it, yeah.
Okay. So in topping, we had initially looked at moving the force main to the other side of the road. And then subsequent to that, HRSD and the county had discussed extending the force main limits from Locust Grove Road all the way up to General Polar Highway. So we've come up with a cost for additional survey and design. This is the exhibit that shows the limits of the project as it currently exists. Next slide. So yeah, HRSD and the county came to agreement on this, and the estimated project cost is on the next slide. This summarizes everything to date, which I had talked about in the last presentation. So far, including the monies that I'm requesting today, that will increase the topping design budget, including an allocation for easements within the topping project. We've estimated about 12 easements that will be required, and we've allocated $35,000 for the appraisals, negotiations, bars report, title search, and other stuff. Next slide. This is a breakdown of the additional services, the additional design cost, additional survey, utility location, environmental services to do wetland delineations and include the additional limits in the joint permit application that we will need, and bidding and award services. And then I've got the easement acquisition on a time and material basis, not knowing the extent of how much detail we'll have to get into with easement negotiation and acquisition for the design team services. This does not include any compensation for the property if there is any. So that is a total of $98,000 that I'm asking for additional services and topping. And as we move forward and talk about Deltaville, I have the basic design services lined out, and then I have additional services that have been requested to give you an idea of the all-in cost that we've talked about in the past, and I'll get into a little bit more detail in this PowerPoint, and then after that, I'll go through each of the proposals for topping as well as Deltaville phases 1, 2, and 3. Next slide. So this is a summary, a repeat of the slide I had before. It gives you an indication of the Clean Water Revolving Loan Funds applications that we've submitted and have been approved for or are in the process of being approved for. And then the ARPA applications that I put together. The total requested funding is a little bit north of $44 million. In March, we'll get a determination from ARPA as to the level of grant funding that we'll receive through DEQ that we've requested. And as we move forward, I believe DEQ has tentatively approved the Hartfield, Saluda, and Topping applications that were submitted last year. So as we move forward with design, the county will finalize the terms of those loans. And if there's not any principal forgiveness associated with the Clean Water Revolving Loan Funds, but the ARPA grants are 100% grant money. And the 44 million is in excess of the total project costs that we've estimated. Next slide. You've asked for a schedule. I know this is hard to see. We've got some initial survey, field investigations. We're looking at doing some geotechnical investigations. Yeah, if you can make that bigger, that would be helpful. And then we have also included at your request some of the critical design aspects, which are in the middle of the schedule there that will get us out to the beginning of design. And then we have construction timeframe of approximately 15 months for each phase. And that's assuming, so that puts us finishing the work out in early second quarter of 2026. And that's assuming we're going to get started swiftly. We've been talking about getting started in Deltaville for some times. And this is the schedule that have the additional details. The next slide explains some of the critical path items that you requested in a time frame associated with that.
Real quick, Ken, before you get off that slide, I noticed we have this Deltaville project in 3 phases, but the construction for all 3 starts January 2025. Is there no staging? They all are starting congruently?
I've been asked to show the schedule to start concurrently. I was originally under the impression we would design one phase and then construct the next one and then move in that fashion, but I've been asked to show all of them starting concurrently. So what we do have is getting started with the survey initially, then we will move forward with design for phase 1, and we will move concurrently with all the critical path approvals, VDOT, DEQ, the Corps, and other critical aspects of the project. And late last week, we also were told by DEQ that we're going to have to do an environmental assessment for Topping as well as Deltaville. But there's been some prior work that's been done in conjunction with the water system that will be able to reuse some of that stuff.
So realistically, at one point, we were talking about staggered starts in construction. Now we're actually not sure, but we're forecasting that they'll start pretty much near the same time. There's not something that happened where we said, let's all start at the same time because there's an economy of scale or something.
No, I think there was a desire to get all the bids close to the same time. So we'll have an idea of what the bid costs are per phase and encourage competition.
Yep.
So instead of, staggering and giving one company a disadvantage, it's desirable to bid them all close to the same time.
So a conscious decision and beneficial to the project. And the reality is the chances of all 3 starting exactly the same size isn't set in stone, but for right now, for planning purposes, it makes sense to be shooting for that.
That's correct. And the difference with this schedule and the phasing map is that the 4th version of the PER had Deltaville being deployed in 4 phases. And when we did our drive-through late last year, it was determined that we want to do 3 phases, and I'll expand on that. The next slide is going to talk about some of the critical path items.
That's correct.
That's the
John,
prior one.
Economy of scale, cost of materials escalating, cost of labor escalating, shortage of materials and so on, time that it takes to get materials. We looked at condensing the schedules versus do phase 1, get it done, almost done, then start phase 2. It's like, let's look at compressing the schedules,
doing everything at once, ordering all the materials at once, getting everything here, and then look at what it would take to progress the schedules all at one time.
And all those are sound logic in my mind. The only downside that I'm thinking of that I'm hoping you've thought of is just congestion if we have all three of those going. So you guys have already looked at that as well. Okay.
There's going to be congestion.
Oh, it'll be.
Promise.
It'll be congestion from the standpoint that there's the possibility that we will be doing all three phases at one time, but they'll be in different areas. And the fact that we control and dictate how the schedule is done from the standpoint, do we cut and cover or do we do we directional drill?
I think, Charlie, the big thing out of this right now, and Ken, you as well, I know it's 2026 and it seems far away, but now is the time to really be planning about traffic control, making sure dirt isn't tracked out on the roads, all of that stuff, just anywhere you can put it into contracts right now, because the citizens are going to understand the financing by the time that the pipes start getting in the ground. And then the complaints will be about, why are you disrupting my life? And so let's just be on that now and often and regularly. And so, because I mean, you if you've lived here at all for the last 10 years, as I have, when things go badly in terms of traffic, it goes really south really fast, whether it's a bridge closure, whether it's a flagger in Hartfield and it's backed all the way up to Matthews, you know, people really get upset. So I want to flag that we're starting them all at the same time in theory, and that's great. And there's benefits that we've analyzed, but let's make sure we're really thinking about congestion and traffic.
Yeah, that problem's
throughout.
not isolated to Middlesex. As I work on projects around the state, we have the same issues.
Yeah, understood.
We're going to inconvenience everybody, so nobody's going to feel left out.
We'll do our best.
I just want to be able to point to this conversation to my constituents in 2026. I tried.
We'll do our best. So you had also asked to include in the schedule some of the critical design aspects. Environmental permitting, we are gonna obtain the joint permit application for topping. We're working on that. We're looking at getting a nationwide permit for that. We're gonna directional drill under environmentally sensitive areas and limit the area of disturbance to wetlands below the threshold for an individual permit for topping. So it's our intent to get a nationwide permit. The environmental permitting costs that we have in our contract currently does not include the environmental assessment. We submitted the EA from the water system to DEQ. The same reviewer is reviewing the HRSD environmental assessment that was prepared for the remainder of the work that HRSD is doing. And we had a follow-up call with Deanna Friday, who confirmed that she originally said we have to do an environmental assessment for the topping pump station site because it was not included in the water system, and that she wants to revisit an environmental assessment, but we could potentially reuse some of the prior information and kind of not start from scratch. But we do have to look at the Endangered Species Act because of the recent change in the classification of the long-eared bat to endangered instead of threatened. So that's something that she pointed out. So that's why in the cost that I'm going to show you, we're going to have environmental, and it's going to be to be determined. And I've already reached out to our environmental folks to start the wheels rolling to see how much that's going to cost. Easement acquisition, I've got 15 months up here. That is optimistic. And I put that up there because the county's already been down this road, the state roads, as well as the private roads, and we have a better understanding of how the process is going to go. We've met several times and discussed how this will move forward. We've assumed a certain percentage of the easements will have to follow the entire VDOT process, an appraisal, a title report, negotiations, a 60-year title search, and then develop the plats and get the deed of easement signed. And our scope of services is to get the deed of easement signed by the property owners and then turn that over to the county attorney for recordation. Site plan review and approval, that's going to be through the county and DEQ. Every phase includes a stormwater pollution permit, and that is reviewed by DEQ. They recently passed some new legislation that can help streamline that. It's going to be more work on our behalf, but hopefully it'll get the DEQ approval for the SWIP more quickly. We've had a preliminary meeting with VDOT. We aren't going to know until we have the 30% plans and we go to VDOT to request us to locate the pipe within the VDOT right of way under the pavement. And that determination will greatly affect the easement cost. If we can be under the road, we will significantly reduce the number of easements, but we will increase the pavement restoration costs unless we drill a lot of that. So that's still an unknown. An HRSD review and approval that will go concurrently with all the other approvals. And as I mentioned, the SWIP and the DEQ review and approval with respect to stormwater. Next. So this is a summary of how the phases are going to be broken out. This is the revised phasing map. Phase 1 is going to be Stingray Point down General Puller Highway to the terminal pump station behind the Deltaville Market, and then extend the force main up to Parsons Lane, which is where the county's responsibility ends, and HRSD will extend the force main from Hartfield up to Parsons Lane. Phase 2 will be Stove Point and the areas in blue south of General Puller Highway, and phase 3 will be Timber Neck and the areas in green north of General Puller Highway. Next. Oh, you want to, yeah, it's on the next slide too. So after we had done our drive about, this is the phasing that was agreed upon. And since we initially were asked to look at the number of easements, we pared that down a little bit. We've come up with a need for 164 easements in phase 1, 168 in phase 2, and then 84 in phase 3. Total project easements is 416 currently, and that's going to be largely dependent on what VDOT determines with respect to us being allowed to be in the VDOT right of way. And we've estimated a cost of about 2 to 3 million. Matt thinks 2 million is too high. Heather thinks 3 million is too low. So we've really got that nailed down good at this point. Next slide. And this is a summary slide that I had in the last presentation for topping Hartfield, Saluda, Deltaville to give you the overall construction cost, easement acquisition, and design costs. And that is a summary of what we've done so far. And then we also included some of the things we had in the ARPA applications of the 1,000 grinder pumps at 4.25 million for a total project cost of approximately 41 million.
Yeah, that cost does include the 1,000 grinder pumps and also assists the property owner decommissioning their septic system and or drain field. So we're trying to minimize the financial impact to the property owners.
On this slide, my question is, we have from Timmons, we've got the design cost, and then we've got these additional costs that we've been discussing. Are those additional costs all contained within the construction costs?
No.
Are they in this grid?
1.47. The we have the easement acquisition costs that we have here are the costs for paying for the easements. It's a blend of what I included in this slide previously was what I thought would be the property acquisition cost for easements. That does not include our services for easement acquisition.
Are all of the Timmons projected service costs included in this grid?
No. Let me get to the next slide and then I'm gonna go through in detail.
Okay, great.
Phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. Go back up. I thought I had a slide that showed the design costs for each one. Yeah, right here. You skip that one. So what we have in our design cost for phase 1 is about 647,000. Phase 2 is 564 and phase 3 is 246,000. So the total design cost that we have currently for all 3 phases is about 1.46 million. And this excludes environmental assessments, which we just got guidance on last Friday. In the last presentation, I had estimated design cost at 1.6 million for all 3 phases. So we're still in the ballpark with respect to that. And then in addition to the 1.46 million, we've estimated about another 1.9 million in additional services. That includes appraisals, title work, negotiations, construction inspection on an annual basis, material testing in the VDOT right of way, expenses, easement plat development, startup and testing of the pump station, and any other aspects of it. And I'll go through that in more detail with each phase. So right now, the total all-in cost that I have for design and additional services is about $3.4 million. And again, that's subject to VDOT's approval of us being located in the roadway and how many of the property owners are willing to negotiate in good faith or donate the easements to us. There's been a lot of discussion about how the county will end up with these easements. If it's a provision of you signing up for the sewer system to donate an easement, that's yet to be determined. And we currently don't have any customers signed up for the sewer system. So we're also going to have to do town halls and get the temperature of the community as to how many customers we're going to have. Currently, we have projected 550 customers that are going to hook up to the sewer system. Initially, the total system capacity is 700 customers. So that leaves us a cushion of about 30% for growth after initial system deployment. And so with that, that's the conclusion of my presentation here. And then I'd like to go into the detailed breakdown of the scope after I address any of your questions.
You want questions now or you want us to wait?
I'm here to be at your service. If you have any questions now, I'll entertain them, but I'm sure the things I'm going to go through after this are going to generate questions as well.
Okay.
If you got a question now.
Yeah, I have a couple I'd just like to be quick on. With all three of the phases, as it appears now, that's going to coincide at one point, correct? I'd like to ask Matt, the county administrator, how does that flow into our balance sheet on, because I would assume if that's going to happen, more costs are going to have to be paid up front. And how does that scenario, how do you feel comfortable about that?
Well, that's one of the reasons we put $2 million coming in from fund balance for this capital project in next fiscal year. And we also have what we have currently budgeted and set aside for that capital reserve in this operating budget.
Okay.
To the tune of $857,000, I believe it is.
Correct.
Or 54, excuse me. So it's a project we're going to have to start paying some of the soft costs on or finance them. And as I discussed this morning, at this point in time with the interest rates and with the healthy, robust nature of our fund balance, I think I'd recommend if we move forward with the project that we go ahead and pay some of the soft costs up front, so we don't have to finance that and pay interest on those money.
And where do we stand? I asked this morning, but just for the public, I'll ask it again. Where do we stand on the funding request, grants and or loans?
We should find out hopefully in March whether we're successful with our grants after the General Assembly session ends. And it being an election year, I would surmise it's going to end on time in February. So we should know first part of March. Everyone's up for election. They're wanting to get home, raise money and start running for re-election in November.
Okay, thank you. So how does that correspond with the three-phase approach starting immediately when we haven't gotten a guarantee on what the funding is going to be or not be?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking somebody.
Very good. I'll answer that.
I don't care who
One
answers
important
it.
point that wasn't raised earlier is by bidding it out at once, all at once, and we learned this lesson with the Water Authority, and it was a hard lesson for us to learn because it was dictated upon us by the USDA, is that you get the shot in time of what that project cost is. By bidding it out in stages, potentially bidding it out in stages, you run the risk of the last phase, a needed phase for sustainability, being jacked up to the roof and getting a different bid price because the bidder may feel like they have you over a barrel. Whereas if you bid it out all at once, you have the cost of the project. The second point I wanted to make earlier, we kind of went by it and I just didn't want to sidetrack the conversation, is an important aspect of this project that's not at the table now. It's not our engineers, it's not our staff, it's not what we want, it's the low bidder. The low responsible bidder is going to come in and say, hey, you bid out the project in phases. I've got so many crews. I may want to restructure the timing of that. And that happens during contract negotiations. The very important third party to this conversation is not present at this time. And that's who is the lowest responsible bidder for the project. They may want to start all three projects at once. They may want to stagger them a little bit depending on their staffing. Until they're at the table and ready to discuss that, we won't know. So it's an important aspect. When we have a preliminary design, we can take that to VDOT and show as we plan to require the contractor, at least that, unless that's changed, to directionally drill a lot of these lines under the pavement. When we have, that's right, when we have that preliminary design, we can go to VDOT and hopefully mitigate a lot of our easement needs because we'll be under the pavement. So there's a lot of moving pieces, but we can't get there until we design it.
Okay, I get all of that, you know, whether you start all three phases at one time or whether you, I mean, you know, it's a gamble bet, whether the prices would be higher if you wait, or whether the prices would be lower if you wait.
Right. That's a gamble. And it really depends on the market that we meet when we get the bid, which according to the Gantt chart, Ken, was about what estimated time?
Early 2025.
A lot can happen between now and then.
Yes, it can.
Right.
Let me move on and then I'll try to get offline here. I noticed in, I don't know what page it is. It's
66.
is that what it is? That one?
It's 66.
Okay. I thought it, yeah, page 66. Print was so small, I couldn't read it. Just a couple questions on the easement acquisition. I noticed from our December meeting that you had no figure in there for Hartfield. Now you have a 75K for that. Just help educate me a little bit. Was there a reason we didn't put that in December?
I had no information about Hartfield. Since then, we've submitted a preliminary engineering report, and that's an estimate at this point. We think we will need some easements. There's a lot of stuff going on in Hartfield. We'll do our best to stay within the right of way, but I didn't want to leave that number at 0.
Okay. We should have had you early on this morning because at this time of the day and me being tired and everybody being tired, and with all these numbers that seem to be floating around out there, it makes it a little more difficult. So bear with me if you would. And I'm comparing, December, we had a design cost fee of 2449. And now it looks like the Deltaville, because there was a projection made of 1.6 million for Deltaville for design cost, and now that's gone down to this presentation to 1.45.
Yeah, and that does not include the environmental assessment, which we now know that we will have to complete. And I'm waiting on costs from our environmental staff to get an idea of how much that's going to be. But we will realize a cost benefit because of some of the previous work that had been done with the water system and HRSD's environmental assessment. Just like we realized savings in Deltaville reusing the survey from the water system.
Okay, great, wonderful. Whatever saves us money, we're all for.
Me too.
And you're doing a great job, and I appreciate what you do. I just have 2 more questions, not to monopolize everybody's time, but just want to be clear on some of those. So at this point, the projection in December for the total wastewater project, correct me if I'm wrong, was 41,343. Or excuse me, today it's 41,343. In December was 41,046, about a $300,000 difference.
That may be accountable for topping Hartfield and Saluda easements. I'm not sure if I included that back in December.
Okay. I'm not sure either.
Yeah. County Hartfield pump station contribution. So that was something, that's a good question. I don't know where that $300,000 resides in this budget.
Okay, well, in me looking at.
Yeah.
What I look at, some things jump out and.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure we were, where we were on the page on that. The only other question I have, maybe. And you probably may have answered it, and if my math is correct, in December, we had a cost of 2.4, just to round off numbers. And now it appears that the three phases is going to come in at 3.39.
Or what? Or design?
Yes.
2.4 million for design.
But for design cost.
I know we've added additional services and right now I am at 1.9 for design of Deltaville. I have not developed detailed design costs for Saluda Hartfield, and we're in the midst of design for topping. So design cost for topping appears to be accurate. Hartfield and Saluda are estimates for design. Okay, so you said we were at
If my math is correct.
north of 2 million. That was for the overall project. That was for Deltaville, Hartfield, Saluda, and topping. And the price that I've given you now is just for Deltaville. But this table should be very similar to what I had in December. I don't think I've revised it since January.
The only addition that, and it probably just went by me, was there are some additional services that will flow in. And I'm assuming, and that may be wrong, but I'm assuming that this spreadsheet encompasses the additional services that you've put forth on
That spreadsheet,
phase 1, 2, and 3.
the spreadsheet as of February 7th does not include the additional services
Okay,
for Deltaville.
does not include.
Does not.
those. Okay,
So we're at 1.457 for the design, and I'm estimating the additional services at approximately 1.93 million.
that's
For
1, 2, and 3 for Deltaville.
1, 2, and 3 for Deltaville, and those additional services include startup and testing of the pump station, easement plats, which we are currently at 416, appraisals, which we're assuming 10% of the 416 easements will have appraisals. The remainder will have bars reports. Some will not have bars reports. Some will just have a plat and a deed, depending on how willing the property owners are to work with us. Some will have 30-day title reports. Some will have 60-day title reports. We've assumed 10% will have 60-day title reports. Negotiations with property owner. In additional services, I've included an annual cost for construction inspection of $176,000. That's one person per phase per year at 2,080 hours per year, which is what I was asked to include. I've got material testing at approximately $25,000 per phase for VDOT compaction testing if we are within the roadway. And then I've got an allocation for expenses for each phase. So that's what the breakdown for the additional services are. And the total for those additional services between phases 1, 2, and 3 vary based on the number of easements
Yes,
and
sir.
other factors. So
Thank
hopefully the
you.
number of easements will go down.
And this is just a further education for me, and I'm sure I asked it in December. When we allocated on all of this to buy the and we're looking for a grant for that, but the grinder pumps,
Yes,
1,000 grinder pumps.
yes.
Just so I better understand that, we're gonna purchase those and inventory those, correct? Is that the way that's gonna work?
When we found out, oh, go ahead, Charlie.
They're gonna be part of the project. We'll include them, we'll install them as part of phase 1.
But you'll install them based on who signs up for, correct?
And not just for Deltaville system one.
Yeah, that's for system.
Yeah, so essentially, we're buying up front. We're gonna inventory that product until it goes out, correct? And the customer will pay for the grinder pump, and they pay us, they pay HRSD. How's that gonna work?
We're providing the first
That's included in the hookup fee,
Yes,
correct?
that's correct. For the first 1,000.
For the first 1,000.
First 1,000. It's gonna cover it under the grant.
And that's contingent upon us receiving the grant for at
Yeah.
4,050 each.
Okay, and if we don't receive that, what's the secondary plan? Okay,
That's what the story has been all along, that the homeowner is responsible for the grinder pump and the electrical hookup, the improvements to their breaker panel, and running the lateral and the electric from their house down to the grinder pump. But when we got details of the ARPA grant program, there was a sewer collection system component and a straight line pipe elimination component, and we were made aware that equipment can be included as part of the grant. So I was asked to put together a grant application for $4,250,000. If we're successful with that grant, then the cost of the grinders will be covered under the grant.
Right. Thank you, Ken. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a couple of questions on this same slide. The thing that I've find is elegant about this slide is that it tries to capture everything, and there are things that are not captured here. And I want to see if we can start approximating, or at least designating, what the things are that need to be added here. And what I heard was $1.93 million in Deltaville for additional services.
Yes.
Are there additional services for Saluda, Hartfield, and Topping that have yet to be quantified?
Yes.
Okay, and then there's environmental assessment that also needs to be added. Is that right?
Our approach is to do one environmental assessment for Topping because we're closer to advertising that. And then we're going to plan to move forward with one environmental assessment for Deltaville, Hartfield, and Saluda concurrently. So when we do the Deltaville environmental assessment, we'll include Saluda and Hartfield.
And Mr. Chairman, there are a couple edits that are needed for the county contributions to the pump stations. As noted on the slide, county contribution to Hartfield's 330. It's actually less than that. And we do have a number for Saluda, and we'll be going over that in the cost sharing agreements next.
So
that will be edited.
could we just date this slide, and then when we update it, note when it was revised so that we can capture all this? Because I think it's what I'm hearing, Lud, is it's a great slide, but there's some enhancements that will naturally happen over time. So let's keep revising it and putting a date on it so that we know, hey, we just captured this in this edition. Yep. Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question for clarification, please?
Yeah.
Thank you. Can I'm with Dawn. It's late at night and I've been listening to a lot of numbers. I wanted to make sure in these proposals for the easement acquisitions, that doesn't include the actual proposed pot of money for easement payments.
Compensation to the property owners is not included.
Right. I just wanted to make sure I understood that.
But in the previous slide, I said 2 to 3 million
Right. And that
for-
would be a ballpark
Yeah.
of everything, compensation plus
for
services.
Deltaville.
Okay, thank you.
That's just for compensation of property owners. We're right now at 1.9 for the additional services. That includes construction, inspection, startup, and some other things. There's more additional services in Deltaville because we want to do all the surveying initially. We have a geotechnical allowance. We have a subsurface utility allowance, but the SUE is in all 3 phases. So we do want to do geotechnical for all of Deltaville, and we want to do survey for all of Deltaville in phase 1.
And I'm glad you brought up inspections, just because that was going to be my other point of clarification. The proposal currently is 1 inspector per phase of Deltaville, right?
Yeah, that cost is 1 person, 2,080 hours per year. And in discussions with y'all, that's something that if you can reinvent the wheel cheaper, faster, better, I'm fine with not providing those services.
Thank you.
The Water Authority had an independent third-party inspector. Porter Matthews is the firm we used, and I mentioned it to Ken that may be something the county would want to reserve the ability to pivot and utilize if we saw fit. Once we start weighing the costs and get a better picture on things. And it being an additional service, we can do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Where this says easement acquisition, though, this figure does include compensation to
That's
the
correct,
owners. Okay.
but not the
Not your.
negotiation, appraisals, title reports, construction inspection, and so on and so forth.
Gotcha.
So yeah, when I was asked for the all-in cost, I just when just this version is when I finally come up with the all-in cost for these additional services. And all the additional services are on a time and materials basis. So if they're less, you pay us less. If there's some you want to eliminate, you can do better. And I'm fine if y'all want to do all the property acquisition.
So last follow-up question from me, promise. So we've already established that there's some costs that have not hit this presentation, page 66, correct? Yes. Would you like to venture a guess of where you think we're going to come in on the total project? Right now, it's 41,343. Do we have a educated
I don't
guess?
have an idea of what the county has negotiated with HRSD, so I'm not privy to that dollar value. And that includes some stuff at Cook's Corner, Hartfield, Saluda.
Okay. Is that something you can put?
The only thing I've got up here is Hartfield.
I've got it right now.
Okay,
Not to segue from this discussion and.
well, let's go do that.
This is perhaps, and I don't want to put any shade on anything else the board's discussed today, but this is perhaps the most important topic. So please ask questions.
Right.
I don't want anyone leaving this room thinking, oh, I should have asked that or should have asked that. Because we're talking about a lot of money here and it's a major project for this county,
Yes, it
a
is.
transformational major project for this county. So if we're here till midnight, I've got nothing better to do. I know Heather's going to kick me now, but no, the contribution that the county's negotiated with HRSD and worked out with HRSD on Hartfield, we have to pay 3% of estimated $5 million project. So that comes out at $150,000 for improvement cost, and 3% of the design cost of $330,000 is roughly $10,000. So we're all in on the pump station in Hartfield to the estimated tune of about $160,000. I don't want to steal any of Jeremiah's thunder in a minute, but those are estimates. Once the bids go out, we'll have more concrete numbers, and once it's done with any potential change orders here or there, we'll know for sure. The estimated cost for the Saluda station is higher, and I think I mentioned that this morning. It's $1,014,000. That includes $122,000 in estimated design costs and $891,000 for improvement costs, roughly $1,014,000 of the county's contribution. Because our percentage towards that pump station is higher, we're paying 49% of that cost because the estimated flow into it would be our proportionate share. And you think about it, it seems like, well, why would Hartfield be so much less? Because Hampton Roads Sanitation District is pumping almost everything that comes out of Middlesex County through that pump station over to Matthews. So they're responsible for pumping that regardless. Our proportionate share of the Hartfield pump station is only the amount of the collection system in Hartfield that goes into that lift station, if that makes sense.
Right.
And Jeremiah will make a much better, have a much better explanation of it. So we've got that pretty much sealed out in the cost sharing agreements that are before you next. I think it's highly likely that, as Charlie said, this is going to be updated perhaps by March. And last point I would make, because I don't want to take us off on a tangent, we've invited Jeremiah back in March to give a quarterly update on the sewer projects. There's been quite a bit of work done at Cook's Corner. Everybody sees that on a daily basis. And he'll be in a good position to give us our quarterly update in March.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Reggie, you've been awful quiet.
I'm just trying to get through the realms of it.
Okay.
You asked a lot of questions, you know, and I'm thinking about, you know, when you're gonna run across the river. I'm thinking about when you're gonna run across the river, you know, I'm looking at Hartfield and Saluda and Topping, you know, and I'm just wondering, when they're gonna keep it going.
Well, that's on HRSD, yeah.
That's HR, so
That's
I
not-
gotta
that's
talk, I
not
gotta talk to the
county
guy tomorrow. Yeah, well, I gotta talk to him, cause I gotta see some water flying across the river. We might can't tie in everything, we just look at the thing, honestly.
It's
You
not
know,
gonna be-
so I wanna make sure I leave Saluda, go down Topping and Hartfield to go across the river, so I don't know, you know, I really, I'm still trying to figure this thing out. So Don, you keep on asking questions. But it was a good presentation. These design calls is getting me crazy. One man design, I mean, I look at it like this. We're running a pipe with a pump station, and we got all these designs that we just doubling money over top money, look like to me. You know, design is design. I don't know which design that we really gonna go by now, you know. So I'm just I'm a little puzzled. I do see the price of $50 million. That's kind of plain, you know, just adding up the numbers. And your presentation was real good. You know,
It's
but
not a
I'm
rea-
learning from it all the time.
Yeah. I'm
So
gonna
I'll
drill
have
that
some
more.
questions for you down the road.
Okay.
So
think you need to go take a ride.
yeah, I rode one time. Give it Charlie. I give it Charlie.
So there's 17 miles of pipe in Deltaville and a pump station and a lot of other costs as well. And we have to do things a few different times. And that is to encourage competition. If we did all this as one project, that would kind of lock out some of the local contractors, which would give us some better construction cost.
I'm sorry, but I gotta speak to that too. Yeah, don't kick me. That's very, very important. By bidding this out in such a manner that we have smaller projects, we can encourage some of our local contractors to bid it. And we know where these people live. So the Water Authority tried to do the same thing. The more compact and more tight these small projects are, the more buildable there are for some of the smaller contractors. And we feel like making them competitive and able to participate in the project will bear fruit. We know the big guys are going to be interested in it, and they're going to come with both barrels, and they're going to give us a very good price. We know that. We've heard that when we were closing up the Water Authority project. When are y'all going to bid sewer? We want that. Heard that countless times. So there's going to be a great deal of interest, but having this bid out in phases, there's a likelihood that we could have some smaller contractors, more nimble contractors, local contractors that will be competitive. And I think that's profoundly important for something like this.
So we can move to what's the first proposal? Is that Topping or phase one of Deltaville? If you continue scrolling, that is, well, this is Deltaville phase one. Okay, so this is Deltaville phase one. So this is a summary of the three phases. Phase one is about 6.5 miles of pipe, the pump station, and then the terminal force main down to Parsons Lane. In the design cost for phase one, we're including the piping plans, some pump station plans, stormwater pollution and prevention plan, mechanical and electrical design, architectural services, structural design, site plan approval, project specifications, and project management. So I've detailed, each one of the tasks that I have under here. I'm not going to go into detail in that. So let's go down to the summary of the costs. So right here, we have task one, surveying is $118,000. We have an allowance for subsurface utility engineering of $25,000. That's flexible. If y'all don't want to do any test holes and roll the dice and require the contractor to identify all of the underground utilities, it is a requirement of the State Corporation Commission that any utility be exposed if there's trenchless technology involved. It's, in my opinion, more advantageous to have that information during the design, so you avoid change orders during construction. And then I have a geotechnical allowance of $50,000. And that's to do geotechnical investigations around all of Deltaville in conjunction with phase one. I do not have a cost for environmental assessment task 4 here because we just found out Friday what the requirement for the environmental assessment will be. I'll put that together. And we're going to embark on revision number 5 for the PER. And we have also done 4 prior versions of the PER and spent a lot of due diligence looking at easements and coming up with other things that have been requested since we were authorized to proceed with the PER. And then for task 7, I have bidding and award. Geotechnical and SUE is an allowance. And when I get a firm price for the environmental assessment, that'll be tied down. So the additional services I have in phase 1, startup and testing of the pump station, the pipeline, easement plats is an allocation. If we have folks that are, and that's going to vary. If we just have a small parcel, the plat's going to be easier to do. If we have a 50-acre parcel that we're just getting a little easement from, I'm trying to do those plats without doing a full boundary survey of all 50 acres. So some plats will be more economical than others. Appraisals, we're assuming 10% of the 164 easements in Deltaville phase 1 will require appraisals. A BARS report is a watered down appraisal that's going to be potentially used for the other 90%, depending on whether or not it's a gift or if we have to negotiate. Title reports, we have an allocation for that based on discussions with the county, about $200,000 to negotiate with these 160 folks knocking on their doors, spending time, why are you putting the pipe here? Why don't you put it there? My dog died and you can't go through his grave, and my grandmother planted that tree, and yeah. So in negotiations are time consuming. Then I've included an allocation of construction inspection at every phase, material testing, and then allowance for mileage. So that gives us a total cost for phase 1 Deltaville for design and additional services that I'm aware of right now at about 1.36.
Ken, before you move on, stay on that slide for a moment. I know the answer, but I think it's worth spending a little bit of time on. Some of those tasks are optional.
Yeah.
We could bid the project out with them being unknown and then the contractor being responsible. You
Correct.
mentioned that briefly. Can you explain to us what's the benefit of us doing them ahead of time a little bit more?
That will help minimize change orders during construction. If we just go through and put a line on the plans and we say, this is where the line and grade of the pipe is going to be, and it's going to be this deep here. And then they go out there and there's a fiber line or a gas line or a water main that we didn't know where it was, or somebody's irrigation system or something on their private property. That could be a change condition of the contract, which could potentially expose the county to more liability.
And the contractor could potentially pad the bid a little bit more to absorb a cushion for that unknown, not having it spelled out. The more unknowns you remove on the bid, the better price you're going to get, generally speaking. Thanks, Cam.
Can you go to the next proposal, please? So phase 2, we have a similar description of all the phases. And in phase 2, we don't have as many items for design. When you get down to the table of all of the fee breakdown, I'm not sure what page it's on, but yeah, right above the signature page, right there. That's phase 2. So for phase 2, we have design and permitting, surveying services, SUE, which is optional, environmental services associated with the environmental assessment, which is optional, and then bid and award. So phase 2 is approximately 7.6 miles of force main. We don't have a pump station. We don't have electrical. We don't have structural. We don't have architectural. So this cost, the design cost is a little bit less. But when you get into the additional services, we've estimated 168 easements in phase 2. So you have similar costs for startup and testing, plats, appraisals, BARS, title reports, the same, a little bit higher allocation for negotiations, the same cost for construction inspection, which if the county wants to do it better, cheaper, and faster, I'm fine with that. Material testing, and then I've got an allocation for expenses for a little bit of mileage and copying the plans. So the all-in cost for phase 2 with the additional services is 1.29. And then with phase 3, go to that same sheet, please, for phase 3. And this one we have similar to phase two, design and permitting. Phase two only has about 3.7 miles. So the design cost is less, the surveying cost is less, SUE is less, bidding and award is the same. So the design cost is the least of the three phases. And then some of the additional services costs are less, because we're only estimating 84 easements in phase three. So we've got a total design and additional services of 741,000. Again, there's 176 allocated for construction inspection, which is negotiable. And then I believe the next one I have is topping. Back up one. So for topping, I didn't print toppings out, but we have phase one is design, phase two is survey. Oh, I can't remember what phase three is. If we could, I didn't print out topping, I don't think.
On the survey and topping, Matt, did we survey it on the wrong side of the road when we put the water in?
Well, the thought was that we would try to put it on the same side of the road as the water line to save some expense. The problem with that is there's not a whole lot of room over there. There's a lot more room on the other side of the road, so we had to go on the east side of the road as opposed to the west.
So now my question was, did we survey the opposite side of the road when we put the water in?
No, we wouldn't have surveyed the
Some
east side
areas
of the
we
road
did.
because we were on the west with the.
If
with
you
the
go down
water
near the
lines.
airport, it looked like somewhere down there they surveyed.
That's
the op-
probably fiber or power.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
they've been doing a lot of work out there, Bob.
okay.
So if we could go back up to each, so I've got task 6 for easement acquisition and the cost. I've got an allowance of $35,000. That is on a time and materials basis. So phase 2, there's a phase 6. Go back up one, please. Phase 5 is bidding and award. Phase 4 is environmental services, which I believe just includes wetland delineation and additional work associated with getting the joint permit application from the Corps. And that information will also be used in the environmental assessment, but we have not quantified the cost for the environmental assessment yet for Hart, for topping, or for Deltaville. Task 3 is SUE, and again, that's time and materials. It's optional. If we don't run into a lot of test holes that we need, that cost could go down. So survey and design is fixed fee. Subsurface utility investigation is time and materials. Environmental is fixed fee for the joint permit application, and bidding and award is a fixed fee. And then the last one we have is next page. That was it. Okay, so those are the costs. And then task 6, the 35,000, that was for easement negotiation, and all that is additional services. We are estimating 12 plats there and 1 transfer of property deed from the county to HRSD for the pump station site. Some of the easements and topping are from the county, so we will just have to do a plat and dedicate that property from the county to whatever entity will own, operate, and maintain the sewer system, which is yet to be determined. The easement up to Grace Point is on county property. The pump station is on county property, and the force main on the west side of Grace Point Road currently ends right at the end of the runway, which is county property. And I know there's one parcel next to there, I think the hotel. Our research said the deed was not on title, so I don't know how we handle those. We'll have to do a little bit more digging. That's a Deltaville type of work. Yeah. So that the last one I went through was the first slide I had for the topping additional services, and that's precipitated by HRSD and the county agreeing to go from Locust Grove Road all the way up to General Polar Highway. And that concludes my summary of the PowerPoint and breakdown of all the fees. And if there's any more questions, I'd entertain them. I know it's a lot to digest. Y'all have had a long day. I appreciate that.
From Locust Grove Road to the airport, who pays for that? The county?
Yes, the county's paying for all of topping from Grace Point Campground up to General Pillar Highway.
So there's another cost. Huh?
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chair, are you looking for a motion? Where do we stand?
I need to check with the county administrator here. Charlie?
So moved.
Second it.
Motion by Mr. Coates, second by Mr. Jesse. Thank you. Any further discussion?
Yes, I just wanted to ask for clarification. Is the motion that was made to apply to the topping and the 3 phases of Deltaville, I assume?
My intent was all inclusive, yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure.
You clarified that resolution for the record?
To apply to all of them. Yes, ma'am.
Any further discussion?
Thank you.
Yeah, I want a little bit more clarity on this thing. We approved this will give them the go sign on this $45 million.
No, not, my understanding is we are approving the engineering design work to begin, which is the first step that we need in order to get better estimates for certain elements because the engineering needs to be done. And it's what we will need for bidding. So this commitment is for what's the total
4
of
million
these 4
plus
things?
98 for topping.
How much is it?
3.4 million for Deltaville plus 98 for topping.
So 3.5 million.
So roughly $5 million.
3.5.
3.5. This is what the motion is about.
And if I could just add, Reggie, I think the other reality in a huge project in a small community like this is there is no really clear milestone where Ken or others can come to us and say, it is all guaranteed to be this number. We just had long-eared bats show up last year, and I've fought bats before in construction among many other species. It can be any number of things that come up as we go towards actually going through the design and the building. And the reality, and this is just my opinion, is that we have committed to a sewer project and we are doing our diligence and we are talking with our experts monthly, if not more often. We've hired a county engineer. We have our council looking at it. This is a decision that we have to keep making. We have to keep making this decision. We've committed our community to water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. We've accomplished the water and it has been a struggle, but we've learned a lot. We've actually expanded our government to some extent to be able to accommodate all that we've learned. We've learned how to acquire easements as efficiently as a small community putting in water in the 21st century can. And here we are. We're well positioned. We understand the project. I think, as you said, Ken has done a great job of laying out to us what things are fixed cost and what things are dependent on things that we're still learning. And that is the reality of large construction infrastructure projects. And so we're going to have more of these steps, and not to step on you, Lud, but this isn't our first step. This is probably our 7 millionth step. And there's probably 7 million more, and they're all going to feel big because they are big numbers. And these are numbers that are impressive to me when I think of the private sector construction that I've been working in. I never could come up with grants and loans like we have come up with grants and loans on this project. It's impressive. When we just talked about those grinder pumps, 1,000 of them at 4.2 million, we basically came up with $4.2 million in grant money. It's not here yet. It's another one of these things that we're waiting on. But theoretically, what we've done is sweetened the pot for our constituents to make this more accessible to more people. I think we've done everything we're supposed to do. And I think this stands up to public scrutiny. I'll put my name on it. I've done it 7 million times, I feel like. And I have been studying and watching this now for 5 years. And I am confident in Ken, I'm confident in Charlie, and I'm confident in Heather, and I'm confident in this board. We've gotten this far, and this is just one more of the steps that we got to step through.
Only thing I'm saying is approximately this motion, how much money are we talking about? $3.5 million.
$3.5
We
million.
pass it, we talking $3.5 million.
Yeah.
It might be 6, but we talking roughly about $3.5 million.
Yeah.
So if we say yes, it's $3.5 million that we're gonna need to come up with. Y'all keep on, keep on going, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And this 40-something million construction cost doesn't include the 35 million or so that HRSD is invested in this community. And that money is being leveraged by HRSD ratepayers. So I'm helping fund the remainder of the HRSD project by not living in the county.
That was a good question. Reggie, for clarification.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Okay.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Jesse,
Yes.
Mr. Coons,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
and Mr. Kimbrough.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you very time. And yeah, I'll be here quite some time, years to come.
Can't wait to see you again. All right, Matt, you got the cost sharing agreement?
Absolutely. I'm going to introduce Jeremiah. He's going to give you a rundown and I'm going to highlight some key points to the agreement after he is done. Jeremiah, are you keyed up, mic'd up and ready?
I'm hoping you can hear me.
Yep, we can hear you loud and clear. So why don't you go ahead and take it from there and then I'll finish up for you at the end.
Okay, we're introducing 2 cost shared agreements today. One's for the Saluda pump station that is going to be at the existing Central Middlesex treatment plant that's right beside or right behind the courthouse or adjacent to the regional jail in Middlesex. So the idea for that pump station is we're decommissioning the treatment plant and then we're going to install a new pump station there. That pump station coincides with a phase 1 Saluda pump station that Middlesex wanted to build in their regional plan. So Middlesex and HRSD came together and decided it's better to install 1 pump station instead of install 2 facilities due to O&M cost and spare parts and overall life cycle cost of those pump stations. So we came together and came up with the idea of constructing 1 pump station to facilitate both our needs. So with that being said, that first Saluda pump station is a 49% Middlesex, 51% HRSD split. Right now, these are just estimated costs that are within the cost sharing agreement, but those are off of flow projections that we've looked at for all 3 phases of Saluda going to HRSD system. And those flow projections equate to what we currently service, including the Cook's Corner service area. So that's where those flow projections came from. Now for the Hartfield pump station, we are same concept. Middlesex has a need for a pump station in the same vicinity as HRSD needs a need for a hydraulic break in our system. So we came to the idea that HRSD will build a wet well because we don't need a wet well for this station. And we will accommodate Middlesex flow going into that station from phase 1 Hartfield. And that's where the 97%, 3% split comes from. That 97% includes all of Deltaville, all of upstream, all the way to Urbana flow. So that's the reason that percentage is so low, because it's just the phase 1 of Hartfield, which is those several residents down General Fuller Highway. I believe to Regent Road to the YMCA, I believe is the conversation for that. So the idea is we want to work as a partner with Middlesex in constructing these 2 facilities. And we felt that the percentage share that we're presenting is a fair value of what what we think the value of the compensation should be. And please let me know if you have any questions.
And I'll piggyback on that, Jeremiah, just to give the cost breakdowns again. We got into it a little bit about 30 minutes ago. The cost split, as Jeremiah said, for Hartfield's 3% county responsibility. The design costs are estimated to be $330,000. Our split from that's approximately $10,000. And then the cost of the improvements in Hartfield are estimated to be $5 million. Our split from that is $150,000. So for an all-in estimate of $160,000 for access to the Hartfield site. The Saluda site is indeed a higher split. The design cost.
Hey, man,
for-
before you leave Hartfield, I got one
Absolutely,
question.
go right ahead.
How much is it gonna cost the county to run it from Locust Grove down to the campground?
The Locust, for the topping system?
Topping for the topping system. and the
I'd
pumping
have to
station?
get the number from Ken. I want to think that force main was going to be about $1 million. Pump station, force main, I believe, is currently programmed at about 2.5. Okay, so the force main's about $1 million of that. Pump station's $1.5 million. Is that about the split? But we'll get you that.
Okay.
number.
I
We'll
just
get you that.
wanna know.
number. So 160 for Hartfield. For Saluda, which our component or split is 49% of Saluda, you're looking at design cost for improvements of about $150,000. Our share of that is $122,647 estimate again. And the cost of improvements for that lift station is, I think, what's HRSD's cost is $946,520. And our cost is $891,480.
Man, that's a question. You said 49% that the county have to pay.
In Saluda.
In Saluda, and HRSD got to pay 51%.
Yes, sir.
Now, is any, what's in it? I mean, you know.
Because HRSD has existing flow that they have to accommodate regardless whether we participate or not. That's our component piece of the flow. So we're actually paying for the collection system in Saluda and some of the collection system in Cook's Corner to come up here to be pumped back. That's where our proportionate share comes from. So think about it. When we run the Saluda line down to the food line, down to Hardee's, and potentially this way out towards Cook's Corner to serve the Saluda service area, that proportionate flow amounts to about 49% of the capacity of that wet well.
So you base the cost on the percentage that.
On our use, yes, sir.
Is
That was fair.
nothing in writing somewhere. I always thought, you know.
This is it.
I always thought 49 and 51 means somebody have a little bit control over the others. So,
Well,
so I can understand what you're saying about the flow.
I appreciate
what-
the
what-
compliment
but-
because
but-
I
but-
got
but-
3% in
What
Hartfield.
I'm looking at is that 51 got a little bit, you know, it might be something else into that. So I gotta have to look at that one real good.
Yeah. The
51.
written agreements, what we're talking about now. And I'm very happy to say we got 3% of a $5 million project down the road. So I'm thank you for the compliment. But it was a fair way to split it. So those are the proportionate costs. Again, they're estimates. We discussed it briefly this morning and that when HRSD needs that $1,014,000 or so for the Saluda station, sometime probably fiscal year 26, fiscal year 25, we need to make sure we're in a position to cover that cost out of the fund balance if that's how we choose to do it. And that's my recommendation at this time. Do y'all have any questions about the cost sharing agreements? We went through them, you know, I'm satisfied with them.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, I assume our county attorney was involved in all of that.
Yes, sir, heavily. Jeremiah and I had Jeremiah was a pleasure to work with. We had some fun conversations and making sure we were calling the same things. So, yes, sir.
And are you satisfied with the way the documents are all put together?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any questions for Jeremiah?
I like seeing you here on the presentation, Jeremiah. I like looking at a person while they're talking. I'm looking all around the ceiling here and I can't find you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had my children today.
That's mandatory. Next time, we want to see you here. All of them looking for you.
He
Like
will be
your
here in
attitude.
March for your quarterly update.
March, we'll-
Yeah, I'm planning on being there next month to give you guys that update for all the projects because we're primed to go for bid in the next 2 months.
That's awesome.
All right, I will entertain a motion to execute the 2 HRSD cost sharing agreements in the packet.
I so move.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jesse, second by Mr. Williams. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Coons? Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Jesse?
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough?
Aye. And the minute should reflect that John left.
Mr.
a
Coons
few minutes
left.
ago.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, we're coming up on 7:30. I've got to ask, do you want to power through or do you want to recess for dinner?
I think the remaining items are pretty quick.
Mine are going to be
So I
very
would-
quick.
I'm inclined to power through unless anybody needs something else. Okay.
I'll bring you out cookies if you need them.
Or next, Anne Marie, citizen appointments, pages 133 through 141.
You have several vacancies. You have 4 people that applied for the Economic Development Authority vacancy. Did I say that right?
Where's?
Economic Development Authority
Yes, there's,
vacancy. There's 4 people that,
well, there's one term expiring and Mr. Reed's term is expiring and he has expressed an interest in being reappointed. He is the vice chair of the EDA.
I like to make the motion that reappoint James Freed.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jesse, second by Mr. Williams. Any discussion?
Mr. Jesse,
Roll call, please.
Mr. Williams, second. Mr. Jesse,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Over to you, Anne Marie, for budget supplement requests.
If I may, the only interesting item is mine, 2023-2, which is a simple, there's no increase in costs, but it is creating the new Department of Facilities of Custodial Services. We talked about that earlier this morning at our, when we had the budget kickoff meeting. And specifically, that is branching off a portion of funds that are currently in the facilities maintenance to create the Custodial Services Department. And other than that, you already approved, you've got items 2023, or excuse me, 2023-25, which is a grant that was for Rachel's department. So
Is the numbering correct? We've got 2023-25 and 26 and then 2.
2 is a budget transfer. I learned this.
Oh,
So the
gotcha.
first 2 are budget supplements.
Gotcha.
And then
okay.
the third one in there is a budget transfer. So the transfers are net to 0. That's usually moving one line item to another. And budget supplements are numbered separately.
Gotcha. Thank you. I'll entertain a motion for all 3.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Williams, second by Mr. Jesse. Any further discussion?
I think it's only for 2.
We already
We've
approved
already
one.
approved
They
the
want to make-
2023,
Sure
26.
did.
So this would be for the 2 that hadn't been approved, 23-2 and 23-25.
Thank you for clarifying that.
No problem.
Have you got that?
I did.
Okay.
I
Any
actually
further discussion?
knew that.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Jesse,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough.
Aye. Motion carries. Anne Marie, Heritage Committee.
This is a simple clarification. Last, at the board meeting in December, the board approved that we provide, let me make sure I've got the right amount of money, $36,000 to the Heritage Committee for signage. When I tried to pay the Heritage Committee, they suggested that they wanted me to pay the Fairfield Foundation. I had no problem doing that, but I wanted to make sure that everyone here knew, so that it's in the minutes and the record, that we're not paying the Heritage Committee, we're paying the Fairfield Foundation, with whom the Heritage Committee has a signed fiduciary agreement, or that's not the right word.
Signed.
Fiscal agent. They're their fiscal agent. So anyway, I just wanted, there is no action required. That is simply FYI, so it's in the minutes.
Great, thank you. Next is cigarette tax report only. It actually does look on a month-to-month basis like the revenues from cigarette taxes are declining. So maybe we have citizens that are getting healthier.
December was, I asked about December, and the our cigarette people, the people that provide us the cigarette tax money, did say that statewide, or the group wide, everyone had a problem in December. They said, we can't explain it. So it was just a weird December, is what they said.
It'll pick back up.
Our taxes are a lot less than the
Yeah, but in December was down $3,000.
Mhm.
November, it was down $2,000. So it's month to month basis is what's interesting. I'm not going to hold us up for that, though. Staff report, pages 154 through 157. It was very informative. Thank you for those reports. No action is required. We're to new business.
only thing I had, that we'll take you about. We did receive an RFP for our PR services. I'd like to ask the board to convene or panel committee to interview the one applicant that's a responsible applicant. I want to move forward with it. So in our process, we would interview, start negotiation, scope of the contract, things of that nature, and hopefully have it back in front of the board for approval. And so I would recommend a couple board members or one board member work with Kevin and I and Anne Marie and maybe Trent to look at that. Definitely Kevin and Anne Marie.
I think that's a good idea.
That's what we said we do.
Yeah. This is one interview with one.
One interview with one candidate, a highly qualified candidate. I'm happy to have them.
I will volunteer to participate in that if you'd like.
That's all I have.
Okay.
If that's a little board, we can handle that.
Any other new business? Okay. Matters presented by the board. You want to kick off? Reggie?
All right, I've been getting some calls about trash and beautification of the county and all this kind of stuff. I would like to see them to maybe get in contact with VDOT or whoever you need. I talked to Matt and Anne Marie, see if we can get some signage out on the road, but litter and stuff like this. And also some signage out there telling them it's a fine for litter. I haven't seen anyone say it's a sign for litter. That's one of the main things I want to, talk about right now, because in the meeting this morning, we was talking about seniors, so we'd have made, we got something in the budget for, to act on before we complete the budget. So that way we were taking care of seniors. And so Ms. Burke, I forgot her last name. Anyway, Ms. Burke came up with an idea of that, giving us some knowledge of taking care of our seniors, literature, and talking to VDOT, so I think with them things, if we can get something like that done immediately, because I would get me Anne Marie on the signage and stuff like this, we'll find out what we need to do with her and Matt, and that way we can take care of that. So that's just about.
I've seen those signs, right? I know exactly what you're talking about. We'll talk to VDOT and see if we can get a couple.
And also when the people call you about beautification of Middlesex going down 33, and sometimes you ride down every day, you don't take a look, and somebody got away of it. See, last year with VDOT, which the guy won't hear today, I don't know where it was, but I will talk to him sooner or later. need some lines and stuff on the side of the road for people that walk and let them know that the signs and stuff. When we start talking about beautification, we put lines on the side of the road, keep your grass cut and stuff like here on 33 going on down. These are the kinds of things that make your highway looks good. And we can take care of the center of the county, Route 33, Route 3, 17. If we can take care of that when people ride through or whatever they see, they will see it, but definitely on the lines, because I think we had 150 people sign about walking up and bicycling. And we didn't, and I see them painting out here on the signs on the road all the time. And I think that'll be a good idea as far as beautification, making the county look better as the entrance, because we got a lot of things going on, so that's about it for me. We did go to the planning commission meeting. And at the planning commission meeting, money had been allocated to Judge Whiting Creek and Broad Creek. So and that money all came from the state. So them two things ought to be on the Louis Long. So that was pretty good. So we can finish the project down there at Locust Hill and dredge that up so we can get more than one boat over at a time. We'd be in good shape. So we wouldn't be waste all our money. Down there.
That's good. Thank you. Don, how about you?
No, I have no new business to discuss. I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay, Wayne?
PDC from the state also.
Mike?
From the PDC, also from the state, we're gonna have a regional dredge, and that $5 million, Eastern Shores didn't want to be involved. They didn't sign up. So that means there's more money that gonna be for the localities. Yeah. So it's gonna be more about, then, it's just setting up the specifics for, the dredge and prioritizing what they're gonna do, move from one county to another county and it's like that. So that was good on that. And that was Archipelago Foundation, you're just getting things together on that. I went to that, and also I will have a sports complex meeting tomorrow. That's it for my committee report.
Great. I attend the EDA meeting, and what they've done with the strategic plan, they had, I think it's 6 key initiatives, and they have they're forming committees, a committee for each initiative, and they've asked their members to consider what committees they want to be devoted to. And so they're coming up with I think a great approach to undertake this ambitious strategy that they've put in place. Very exciting. So their next EDA meeting, they'll begin forming those committees. Had good meetings with the schools, and we have to update you on the historic courthouse committee project. We have our next meeting on March the 1st here at 5 o'clock. Tyler Radabaugh, who did an initial research for us, was successful at doing research, but didn't have the time to really follow through with the committee. And so we actually bogged down and got no progress from about August until December. Holly, who was here earlier with the museum, has engaged with the project. She's been handed off from Tyler all of the research that he's done, literally all the artifacts that are currently in the courthouse. And she's going to be working on a plan that the concept, as we've talked about before, is to understand what we have and then to see how can we frame a historic learning in the courthouse environment with the artifacts we have here and other ones. As the museum said earlier today, we have an unbelievable inventory of historical material here and history that goes back to 1648. That's just fabulous. So that next meeting on the 1st will be something I'm really looking forward to. And I think this year we'll really get traction with how can we make the courthouse more of an historic destination and an educational experience for people to come to. I'm very excited about that. That's it for matters presented by the board. I will open the floor for public comment. I don't see anybody standing. I'll close the public comment. And we have a closed session is all we have left. Do we expect any action afterwards? No.
No, and we
Okay.
will be using this room.
So we will be using this room.
Yes.
So
Mhm.
thank
y'all for
you.
coming.
Thank
Good
you for
night.
attending.
So
Thank you.
with that, Mr. Chairman. With that, Mr. Chairman, we need a motion to convene in closed session pursuant to Virginia Code Sections 2.2-3711A3 and A8. This is for the discussion or consideration of the acquisition of real property for a public purpose, where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position and or negotiating strategy of the board, and for consultation with legal counsel regarding the specific legal questions surrounding the acquisition of said property.
So move.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jesse, second by Mr. Harris. Any discussion? All right, roll call.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Jesse,
Aye.
and Mr. Kimball.
Aye. Do we